This young man looked bewildered when he heard a familiar voice. "This child is the son of Yu Young, so what about her dear head of the family? When we found him, Lord Yu Young." Li Xian vaguely recognized that it was the voice of the head of the Li Song-mu clan, along with the butler of the Li family. But actually, your father, Li Tae-shin, should have already passed away. After Li Xian clearly saw what was in front of him, he confirmed that this person was indeed his father, but he looked very young. And not just him, but also Butler Choi. Li Xian instinctively reached out to the other person, then was shocked to discover his hand was tiny, like a child's. This is absurd, but Li Xian has truly been reborn as a child. Li Xian's first reaction was panic. He didn't understand what was happening anymore. While he clearly thought he had died at first, Li Xian believed this was a reflection, or the afterlife. Then he heard Li Tae-shin instructing Butler Choi, saying, "It's really good if this child's name is John. Like other children, arrange for a nurse to take care of him and also send a guard team as protectors. Additionally, let this child participate in the selection ceremony along with the 8 young ladies." Butler Choi seemed very surprised because Li Xian was just a child who had not been prepared, and the age gap between him and the 8th young lady was quite significant. However, Tae-shin's mind was made up. After agreeing on this matter, he and Butler Choi left. Li Xian, lying in the wooden crib, breathed a sigh of relief. Indeed, it was his father he hadn't seen in a long time, whose presence was still as intimidating as before. But more importantly, what exactly is happening here? If this is truly a reflection before death, then this feeling is too real. Furthermore, the conversation Li Xian just had with Butler Choi actually happened. Although he found it a bit hard to believe, it seemed he had really gone back to the past. It is difficult to accept this absurd situation. But just like that, several months have passed since the first time he returned to the past. The special day of the Li Song-mu clan has arrived, which is the selection ceremony. In this ceremony, the children of the clan will reveal their talents through the selection of weapons. Li Yeon's father, who was chosen by dozens of swords when he was young, became the greatest swordsman of that time. His older brother, who was chosen by swords magic and staves, gained fame for his extraordinary talent in both swordsmanship and magic. This time, the participant in the selection ceremony is Li Xian. Like in his previous life, he had to wear a very uncomfortable ceremonial outfit and sit on a velvet chair waiting. Li Xian's nurse Ga Hua kept praising him for looking adorable in this elaborate outfit, and encouraged Li Xian not to worry, saying there would definitely be a good outcome. The path of the young master will surely always be wide open. I am certain of that. Ga Hua smiled brightly, and Li Yan felt happy with this maternal figure, just like a real mother, because he had not had his mother by his side since he was little. However, due to the oppression from the other brothers, Ga Hua was ultimately expelled from the family. In his eyes, she was the only one who stood by Li Yan, having once cried out of worry for him. Even at the last moment, looking at Ga Hua's kind face, Li Yan was even more determined not to let those painful events happen this time. So he stretched out his tiny hands, grabbed Ga Hua, and pressed their faces together. "Ga Hua, in this life I will definitely protect you," Li Yan thought to himself. At this moment, the servant also came to announce that everything had been prepared. On the other hand, Butler Choi had also come to report to the minister that all preparations for the selection ceremony had been completed. He nodded and led the group outside. The selection ceremony truly gathered a large number of people. Compared to the 8th young lady, the illegitimate child just brought home like Li Xian attracted their attention even more. He could recognize a few familiar faces such as Madame Baek Hoa, the official wife of Li Tae-shin, the head of the Li family. Li Tae-hyung is also the younger brother of Li Tae-shin, the eldest son of Li Mi-hyung-jong, and the third son, Li Gun-seong. Li Tae-hyung stared at him, then exclaimed that he was really still too young. Mi-hyun-jong also nodded in agreement, saying that he had never seen anyone participate in the selection ceremony at this age. Li Gun-seong looked visibly upset. It's understandable. The sudden appearance of an illegitimate child from his father would annoy anyone who wasn't generous. In response to the clear declaration from the head of the family, Li Tai-shin, the selection ceremony officially began. The 8th young lady Li Hua was the first to start. Tae-shin held her and placed her on the stone chair in the middle of the ceremony, then used a dagger to make a decisive cut on Li Hua's fingertip. She immediately cried out, and blood from her fingertip fell down, soaking into the stone, instantly creating an invisible connection. The weapon that was connected to the other end of that thread was the supreme name sword, the holy relic of the statue Tooth Sword. The statue Tooth had not responded to any child of the Li Sung-mu family for a long time, yet now it chose Li Hua. Tae-shin reached out, and the statue Tooth Sword immediately flew toward him. He raised the sword high in front of everyone, declaring that from now on, this weapon would belong to Lai Hoa. People immediately gathered around Beek Hoa John to congratulate her on welcoming another outstanding genius into the Hoa John family, politely thanking them, but his gaze remained fixed on Lai John. His ceremony began right after Li Hua. At this moment, many people above were whispering about his identity, thinking that a second son of unclear origins had no right to participate in the selection ceremony. But Tei Xin still embraced him and then placed him down on that chair. Unlike his older sister, Li Xian did not cry out when his father drew blood, which pleased him greatly. Tei Xin patted his head right in front of everyone and praised, "Very good." However, Li Xian had already lived a life, so he did not feel joy or satisfaction. On the contrary, because of his father's praise, Li Xian felt very tense as this moment had finally arrived. In his previous life, the sword that chose him was the celestial sword. Not knowing if he had been reborn, does he? And it still have a fate together in this life. Li John's blood dripped onto the stone bench just like Li Hua, quickly forming an invisible bond. In the high stands, Tae Hyung silently observed the person beside him and saw Hoa John's face was pale. Are you blind not to realize she is not happy at all? It's understandable, after all, Li John is the hidden bloodline of Tae Shin. She is the official wife. It would be strange if she felt happy. Tae Hyung sighed silently, feeling that Li John had a truly harsh fate. Carrying the title of the second son and wanting to survive in the Li family is really not an easy thing at all. This small concern of Tae Hyung was noticed by an elder in the family. The old man with white hair stepped forward a few steps, then stroked his beard and said, "It seems the steward also cares quite a bit about this second son." Tae Hyung did not respond, only silently gritted his teeth. He felt that perhaps it was because of these conservative old men stuck in the pure-blood ideology that everything became so tangled. But after all, the other party is the elder Lee Cheon-jung, a high-ranking and respected figure in the family. Tae Hyung also hesitated and did not dare to be rude, so he replied, "Greetings, elder." Tae Hyung's gaze was icy. He also knew that Cheon-jung was someone who never revealed his true thoughts, so he could not let his guard down when speaking with him. Like the majority, Cheon-jung showed a disdainful attitude when seeing a second son born from unclear origins participating in the selection ritual. But what he said afterward was truly outrageous. The selection ritual originally meant nothing to a second son. This has been clearly proven through the steward's experience, hasn't it? Tae Hyung's hands clenched into fists. He really wanted to fight this old man, but of course he could not do that. Therefore, Lee Cheon-jung remained extremely arrogant. "Oh, I apologize if I spoke disrespectfully. It's just that the steward from outside who has not been chosen by any weapon in the selection ritual is overly famous. Indeed, the older the ginger, the spicier it gets, and the words spoken by Lee Cheon-jung were truly enough to drive Tae Hyung crazy. In his eyes, the second son was merely a second son, not worth a penny, so it was better for him to know his place. Tae Hyung finally couldn't hold back any longer. He shouted, "That's enough! I won't tolerate such insulting words any longer." Lee Cheon-jung's eyes widened in surprise, not because of Tae Hyung's resistance, but because of the blinding light emanating from beneath the stands. Tae Hyung immediately stood up. The blue light became increasingly dazzling, and these two Lees carried completely different emotions. How could this possibly happen? Lee Cheon-jung clung tightly to the railing, almost losing his balance. Haha, even though I'm witnessing this firsthand, I still feel like I'm dreaming. Lee Tae Hyung seemed excited, quietly hoping that the child from the same background as him would have a bright future. The beam of light connecting to Leon was so bright that people couldn't even see him and the head of the family standing at the center of the stage. The result was different from what had happened in the previous life, where all the weapons present in the ceremony had chosen Leon. Even more terrifying was that even the weapons that already had masters reacted to him as if they wanted to abandon their current masters to accept Leon as their new haven. Myeongjong's sword was no exception. The sword in his hand lit up, but instead of being annoyed, Myeongjong seemed excited. Then he turned to his younger brother and asked, "Gunseong, do you believe what you are seeing? It seems our ninth brother possesses talents far beyond what I ever thought right." Lee Gunseong responded with a sharp gaze, wishing he could deal with Lee Xian right now. All the witnesses were buzzing with discussion. The majority believed this result was absurd and could not possibly occur for a child born out of wedlock. Lee Teo took a deep breath and then signaled for everyone to be silent. As a result, the entire surrounding stage fell silent. He stated that according to the family rules, all weapons that chose Leon must belong to him. However, handling this issue simply may not be easy, so I would like to hear everyone's opinions. Taehyung was the first to express his opinion. He felt that regardless of the family rules, giving all the weapons here to Lee Zeon would go against the meaning of the selection ceremony, as this ritual is a tradition that must be maintained for future generations. Therefore, the fairest thing would be to let the 9th son of the Lee family choose one item from all the selected weapons himself. Lee Teo felt his brother's suggestion was not bad and immediately accepted it. He snapped his fingers and all the weapons flew up, then arranged themselves neatly in a circle. Then Lee On also flew up and was placed right in the center of that circle. "Now, son, choose what you desire," Teo firmly stated, even though he wasn't sure if a child like Lee Jong could understand his words. No, of course he understood, and Lee Seon also knew that this choice was very important to him. Although I don't know why things are different compared to the previous life, this is still a good opportunity, so you must take advantage of it at all costs. Lee Seon clenched his fists and began to crawl. Lee Seon had overlooked many precious things, such as the sword bearing the bloodline of the Brahma dragon to defeat powerful demons, the 2 holy spears Bak Khan forged by combining part of a saint's body, or the wand of Van Hen made from a branch of the world tree where the spirits rest. These great weapons were all waiting for Lee John to choose. But he did not hesitate at all, and crawled straight to the ancestral sword of the Lee clan Hakda, which had been found in the uncharted wilderness. For generations, no one had been able to unlock its hidden power, causing it to remain quietly in the darkness, covered in the dust of time. This sword named Hakda had been touched by Lee Seon. Lee TC looked at him intently. Based on known abilities, this sword did not qualify to be classified as celestial. However, because it had a connection to the ancestor of the clan, it was still preserved alongside the weapons classified as celestial. Until now, no immortal had been chosen by Hakda, but Lee John was different. TC was unsure if this was just a meaningless choice of a newborn or a great destiny newly arranged by fate. But then he picked up his youngest son and announced to everyone that Lee John had chosen Hakda, closing today's ceremony. In the high seats, Beek Hoajeon's face was now as cold as ice. She kept muttering, "Lysion, yet another nuisance has entered the clan. If it has become an obstacle, then the only way left is to eliminate it." Time passed swiftly for 9 years. Today was just like any other day. Lysion said goodbye to his nurse to go train, but Ga Hua insisted on seeing him off for a distance. She also wondered because the other training areas were mostly empty, but Lion insisted on choosing the old number 1 area. Before Lion could explain, the two heard someone shouting loudly from training area number 7. "Not like that, gripping the sword too tightly will injure your hand. Swing it down once more." It turned out to be Li Hua practicing with her master, even though this girl stood in the same row as Li John. But he had never referred to Li Hua as sister. Instead, he always called her the 8th young lady. Although this was not very proper, because for him, calling this girl who was only 5 months older than him as sister felt too awkward. Li Hua seemed to be having trouble with her sword swings to the point where she got frustrated with her master and threw the sword in her hand to the ground. The 9-year-old face of Li Hua clearly showed anger. Then she shouted, "Master, why do you keep nagging so much? How can holding a sword be so hard? As long as you grip it firmly, it's fine. Miss, all of this is for you. Please calm down and try again. This time you will definitely do better." The opponent also relaxed a bit, then picked up the sword from the ground and handed it to Li Hua. "This person is Big E Hyun, the leader of the Black Dan Association." Lee John was quite surprised after learning his identity. A 9-year-old child with such a powerful master is truly excessive. While lost in thought, he unconsciously voiced his thoughts aloud. Ga Hua felt incredibly heartbroken upon hearing these words. She thought her young master was feeling lonely because he had no master. Ben reassured him. "Young master, soon, a good master will appear and recognize your true talent." Afterwards, Ga Hua began to feel sad again, taking all the blame upon herself, thinking she was inadequate and unable to serve the young master well, while a child of the same age, Li Hua had been nourished with medicinal ingredients since childhood. Li John was lacking in everything. Seeing the expression of the wet nurse, the young Li John really couldn't take it anymore. Ben crossed his arms and said, "Not this again." The wet nurse is someone I must be very grateful to understand. People like that are not needed. They surely only come because of the Lai Sung Mu family's background. Moreover, I already have good masters. Seeing Li John's confident and mature demeanor, Ga Hoa finally felt a bit more comforted. After sending him to the gate of the training area dedicated to the direct line of the Li Sumu family, she finally left. Li Xian entered this place alone, a symbol of the long history of the prestigious family, but currently it was almost more of a symbol than a real martial arts arena. However, the reason Li Xian came here was singular. It was the storage of ancient weapons older than any arsenal in the martial arts arenas. Li Xian found a sword in the corner, the blade already showing many cracks, but for him, this was a treasure. Because 9 years ago, when he returned to his second life, there were several extraordinary changes that occurred to him. Among them, the most astonishing change was that he had the ability to read the memories contained within various weapons. The moment he held that old sword in his hand, Li Xian felt as if he had traveled back in time several hundred years, standing in a classroom. Therefore, he received the teachings of countless masters from previous generations, which are the memories engraved in this weapon. The more ancient and exquisite the weapon, or the longer it has been used and cherished by its owner, the clearer the memories stand out like a solid pillar never wavering, thanks to the memories from the past being vividly restored. Li Xian studied hard, and today he completed the 7-star sword technique since he was 7 years old. When he came here, he had read almost all the memories of the weapons in the family's storage. For someone with a terrible past like Li Xian, this is quite a proud achievement. Amazing! It's been a long time since I've seen such a perfect 7-star sword. From behind, Li Jian suddenly called out with a familiar voice. You thought it was someone else, but it turns out to be Tai Hyung. As mentioned, the one with this villainous appearance is the head of the Lee Sung-Mu clan. At the same time, he is a level 4 fighter. Although he was born as the second son, he earned recognition through his strength and rose to his current position. From the previous life to this life, Tai Hyung is also the only one in the clan who truly cares. Li Yan is perhaps because both of them share the same status as second sons. Greetings, uncle. Li Yan obediently bowed to Tai Hyung and then chuckled while ruffling his hair. You can just call me uncle. You train every day without fail, that is commendable. Every time I go to work and come back, I see your figure John. Tai Hyung seems very proud of this nephew, and more than anyone, he understands how difficult it must be to face discrimination from other siblings. Nevertheless, Tai Hyung hopes that Li Xian can firmly overcome everything. I'm fine, uncle. No matter what happens, I carry the bloodline of the Lee Sung-Mu clan, Li Jian replied resolutely. To prove oneself with a sword, that is the meaning that our clan name carries, and I have been taught that way. Therefore, I will prove myself with my own strength. Li Xian's answer left Tai Hyung stunned for a few seconds. He felt regretful that such a perfect child was born as a second son. Tai Hyung sighed deeply, thinking that soon the child would be of age to hold the naming ceremony. Although it's a bit late before the naming ceremony, I want to become your master. How about it, are you happy? Li Tai Hyung suddenly proposed, his smile bright, clearly very pleased. However, afterward, Li Yon had to pour cold water on this uncle because he refused this offer. Tai Hyung was taken aback. He thought Li Yon was dissatisfied with having a master like him. But Li Yon quickly waved his hand and explained, Before the naming ceremony, one cannot serve a master. That is the clan's rule, and I don't want to put my uncle in an awkward position. This answer surprised Tai Hyung even more because Li Yon's other siblings openly broke clan rules. The most recent was Li Hua, who already had a master at the same age as him. Furthermore, aside from being taught by renowned masters, they were also nurtured with various kinds of elixirs. However, Li Yon said that even if it's a rule that no one follows anymore, it doesn't mean he shouldn't uphold it. As mentioned earlier, Li Yon wants to prove his strength by his own power. These words came from the mouth of a 9-year-old child, making Tai Hyung find it truly unbelievable when he looked into the boy's eyes. He felt as if he was looking at his brother Li Tai Hyung. So it seems like you are not planning to give up this stubbornness, huh? Tai Hyung sighed and then began to ruffle his nephew's hair. You are just like your father, truly a stubborn one. Even though Li Yon declined his offer to be his mentor, Tai Hyung still wanted to help his nephew in some way because if he did nothing for him, he would feel uneasy. And so Tai Hyung asked again, Is there anything else you need? I can help you. Li Xian's eyes immediately lit up like car headlights. This was the phrase he had been waiting for a long time. So Li Xian scratched his head and began to display his acting skills like a movie star, showing both awkwardness and a strong desire to have what he wanted. Actually, I have a favor to ask of you, uncle. I want to tour the basement of the treasury. It was not hard to see the astonishment in Tai Hyung's eyes after hearing this request. But in the end, he agreed. So afterwards, the two of them got in the car and headed to the Lee Sung-Mu family treasury. At the gate, there were 2 high-ranking martial artists guarding, and their car was stopped. With his position as the steward of the Lee family, Tai Hyung only needed to use the excuse of a routine inspection to easily pass through the gate. Li Zion, sitting in the back seat, was introduced by him as the youngest son of the family here to tour, so the guards had no reason to stop them anymore. After the car passed through the main gate, Li Zion immediately reacted in a way that was appropriate for his age. After all, it wouldn't be right for a child visiting the treasury for the first time to be too indifferent and calm. He also didn't want to raise any suspicions from his uncle. Through the rearview mirror, Tae-hyung saw the excited expression of his nephew and felt very happy. "Do you like it?" he asked. "This is the treasury where the most valuable treasures of the family are kept." But of course, he didn't tell Tae-hyung about his real purpose, which was to find a weapon that he couldn't obtain in his past life. The family treasury contains legendary weapons, ancient artifacts that no one can be sure actually exist. Those who seek such mythical things usually receive the same answer, which is that everything can be found in the family treasury. Lee Seon followed Tae-hyung inside the treasury, then started pressing the elevator button. He said that the basement of the treasury is where sealed weapons are stored for various reasons, including weapons of monster grade that have devoured their own masters. If you carelessly touch those weapons, both your body and mind will be devoured by them. Tae-hyung revealed a sly smile. He wanted to scare the kid, but little did he know that the child in front of him had actually lived 2 lifetimes already. Nevertheless, Lee Son still cooperated by trying to put on a scared expression to please his uncle. Then he reassured him, "Don't worry, after all, you cannot enter such dangerous places. I have some matters to attend to upstairs, so you can take your time exploring." Lee Seon happily nodded, then jumped into the elevator. After the elevator doors closed, you sighed with relief for a moment, feeling a weight lifted off your shoulders. The hardest thing in this life for you seems to be pretending to be an innocent child. Lee Seon pressed the elevator button down to the basement, a place also known as the Tomb of Weapons, a site that seals countless weapons and relics. The reason Lee Seon came all the way here was simply to search for a special weapon named Infinite. Originally, Infinite takes the form of a short sword. However, after channeling magical power into it, its length, shape, weight, and even properties can be changed at will. Thanks to the sword's infinite transformation ability and overwhelming flexibility, he gained the title of Transmutation. Since then, he kicked his older brother out of the top heir position and became the head of the family. Then he found Lee Young, who had always been hiding in the shadows, and eliminated everything he knew. At this point, that was all there was, and to prevent that scenario from happening, you had to find Infinite first, even if it would take a long time. But Lee Zeon had no choice but to check each item one by one. Magical power appeared in your hands, along with a determination that in this life you must obtain that sword, and not Gu Xiong. Lee Jian patiently channeled magical power into each weapon, but an hour passed and he had checked all the suitable short swords without any results. Nevertheless, Lysion was not discouraged. He was sure that that weapon had to be here and decided to check the display case over there. However, while moving, Lion accidentally dropped a rusty weapon. It was also more detailed than any other weapon in this vault. Lion reached out to pick it up, but before he could do that, magical power surged from his palm. Although Lion did not actively do this, the magical power flowed into the rusty short sword. This strange phenomenon suddenly clouded Lee Sion's vision. After he could observe again, he found himself transported to another space, a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Not the clean and tidy vault of the family. Legion was a bit panicked, but he guessed that this was the memory contained within that rusty short sword. However, this feeling was completely different from the memories of weapons he had read about before. It was as if Lysaean was truly present in this place. That feeling was astonishingly clear. Then suddenly he felt a chill run down his spine. Lion panicked and turned around. It was a terrifying pressure that even nature had to tremble before. He saw a pair of enormous eyes glaring down at him from above. It was the apocalypse monster that had emerged from the blue hole in ancient times, devouring countless civilizations. Leon felt weak, his entire body shaking uncontrollably. This was the first time since his rebirth that he felt this kind of fear. Leon knew that there was no way he could win against that ancient monster, and if he wanted to live, he had to run. However, he didn't know when an entity that seemed invisible had quietly appeared behind Lee Sion. Although the image was somewhat blurry, it was enough for him to recognize that the entity was a man holding a sword. Then this man suddenly charged forward, bravely confronting that cruel monster. Just a single strike from this man pierced through the enemy. Lee Sion was so scared that he crouched down to the ground. That power was truly terrifying. Just a single blow had taken out the opponent. After this was over, the blood-soaked man turned around, gave him a cold, icy look, and then asked, "Who are you?" Leon was even more astonished. He had thought this was just a fragment of a memory from an old sword, but it felt more real than other memories. Who would have thought this man could see him? Moreover, the man's gaze was clearly filled with hostility. Sure enough, right after that, he moved closer and raised the sword in his hand. Although I don't know why you are here out of compassion, I will send you off without any pain. Li Jian's eyes widened, but he had no way to stop the blade coming straight down at him. The painful memories of the previous life seemed to be replayed in this moment. He gasped in horror, and then in an instant the space transformed again. Lion returned to the family's secret vault, and then the time-infused short sword in his hand fell, making a clink sound, pulling Lion back to reality, yet he still couldn't stop trembling. It cannot be said that what just happened was just a memory. If it really was a memory, then why did the person in that memory attack him? The feeling of being utterly oppressed by the opponent still lingered as clear as if it were the truth. Afterwards, Lion glanced at that short sword and was amazed to find that the rust covering the sword was slowly disappearing. A hypothesis appeared in Lion's mind. Could this be the infinite? He tried to pick it up to examine it. No doubt this was what he had been searching for. So Li Yan immediately cut his fingertip and let his blood drop onto that short dagger. In this life, he must become the master of countless soldiers. As soon as the fresh blood touched the blade, a blinding light appeared in this secret vault. Li Jian tried to channel a bit of his magical power into it and swung the sword, and indeed that short sword instantly transformed into a long sword. Time quietly passed. A week had gone by since that fateful moment. Today, John continued to practice as usual, but his expression clearly showed dissatisfaction. Puff. Another failure. It has been a week since I obtained the infinite that I got from the underground armory that day. Right now, I'm keeping it in the form of a ring to avoid being discovered. You sit down, gently wipe the sweat from your forehead, and remember what happened in the basement that day. But what exactly happened that day? That's right, that man swung his sword as if to remind me that I was still unqualified. In Jian's mind, the bloody scene where that man unleashed a single sword strike that destroyed the monster appeared again. Not to mention the power, just the movement of that man exuded elegance. However, no matter how hard I try to imitate it, I still can't replicate it. But even so, I don't feel rushed at all. In my previous life, I was just someone looked down upon. Even the basic martial skills of the clan were not taught to me. Just a single technique. But this is the first time I've come into contact with a high-level martial skill, and I will achieve it. Clearer than anyone could think, your gaze suddenly halted your face like a peaceful awakening. That man was not an adult like him, but just a 9-year-old child. If you try to completely imitate the movements of an adult, then of course you won't be able to unleash your full strength. That thought flashed through John's mind like a ray of light illuminating the path ahead. I have to accept this body slowly and naturally, wielding the sword in a way that suits myself. With a renewed determination, John closed his eyes, relaxed. His entire body took a deep breath, raised the sword above his head, then tightened his grip, channeling all his strength down to the sword's tip. As soon as the blade touched the ground, a loud, explosive sound erupted, causing the ground to crack, and dirt and rocks flew like they had just been hit by thunder. Looking at his results, John nodded slightly. Good. It seems like I've got the feeling now. Now it's just a matter of applying the magic power. But right after that, a thoughtful expression covered his face. No matter how many times I tried to apply it from memory, there was still a feeling of lacking an important part that couldn't be replicated. Ultimately, the only way left is to continue experimenting. All right, let's start over. He sighed, tightened his grip on the sword, and prepared his stance. However, just at that moment, a soft but firm hand suddenly grabbed his sword. A strange voice rang in his ear. "Hey, kid, where did you learn that technique?" John hesitated. The newcomer was a young girl with silky black hair and deep brown eyes. Without a doubt, this person had the bloodline of the Sung Mulan clan. He frowned cautiously, asking, "Who are you?" In response to his wariness, the girl laughed comfortably, her voice tinged with surprise. "Oh, you don't know me? That's fair. You might not know me well, since I rarely show my face." Then, without needing an invitation, she cheerfully asked, "So, what's your name?" Seeing her strangely friendly attitude, John hesitated but eventually spoke up. "I'm John." As soon as that name was uttered, the girl's eyes lit up. She held his hand, swaying continuously as if holding a doll. "John's name is really special. That's right, I am Li Ong-Hwa. Nice to meet you." As soon as that name was mentioned, John immediately recognized the identity of the girl, Aunt Li Ong-Hwa. He recalled what his uncle Tae-hong had told him in a past life, that Aunt was so different that even his grandfather couldn't accept her. But what really surprised John wasn't her identity, but the question he silently shouted in his heart, Why doesn't she consider her unreasonable power when playing with her nephew like that? John narrowed his eyes, glancing at Mr. Hoa suspiciously, but still said nothing. Aunt, as if unconcerned about that look, just glanced over and casually remarked, "Your body seems a bit weak." Without beating around the bush, she stepped straight toward John, stopped right in front of him, and bluntly asked, "So, kid, where did you learn that technique?" John was not one to be easily deceived. Of course, he wouldn't be foolish enough to reveal it. He tilted his head, responding cautiously, "Why do you ask that?" Mr. Ho just laughed, replying with a bright face as if bragging about his achievements, "That's ancient martial arts. Aunt here is extremely fond of ancient martial arts. That was the heyday of the monsters, wasn't it?" Iki, after saying that, she took an old book out from her sleeve and handed it to John as if giving a treasure. "So this is a gift for you." John, curious, raised an eyebrow and she nodded, signaling, "Yeah, open it and see." Without hesitation, John flipped through the pages of the book. The more he read, the more he frowned. "This handwriting is too bad, so it's a bit hard to read, but is this magic?" A thought subtly crossed his mind, not only magic, but also recorded martial arts. "The level is so high that I don't understand anything at all. Perhaps the rumors about her are not accurate." Thinking that John hesitated to ask again, "This is..." Realizing that her little nephew was still confused, Mr. Hoa stepped forward, pointed at the book, and explained in a gentle yet enthusiastic tone, These are ancient spells based on the magic power of the past. It can only use the magic power within the body without needing a magic core, while modern magic relies on storing magic power in the heart. But can ancient magic be considered outdated? Perhaps the technique of controlling magic power back then was even superior to now." She paused for a moment and continued with a rare seriousness. "Therefore, Aunt is also researching the art of amplification and transformation, but the remaining records are too scarce." Those words pulled John's mind into a new world. A spark of excitement flickered in the depths of his eyes. "This is a perspective I have never thought of the magic of infinity." Immediately, he turned around and shouted loudly, "Aunt, wait a minute!" Before Mr. Hoa could understand what was happening, John dashed away from there. Somehow, he pulled out a sword, tightened both hands around the hilt, closed his eyes, and began to channel magic power. The flow of energy from the core in his heart spread throughout his body. But then he hesitated. Wait. That nameless martial artist utilized it with manifested magic. The way the man in his memories used magic was something he couldn't understand, but now he could do it. A glimmer appeared in John's eyes. He focused his energy and swung the sword forcefully down to the ground. Immediately, a huge crack split the ground and dirt and stones flew up like an explosion. Seeing the result, John couldn't contain his joy. "It's a success!" But before he could take a full breath, Miss Hoa rushed in like an arrow, her face extremely panicked. She grabbed John's shoulder, shook him hard, and shouted, "What is it?" "That is the amplification technique, right?" John felt a bit uneasy, glanced away, and answered somewhat reluctantly, Yes, it is the amplification technique." "What?" Miss Hoa seemed frozen for a second before bursting out with a scream, "How did you do that?" And John maintained his usual mysterious demeanor. He shrugged and replied tersely, "I just can." Of course, Miss Hoa was not satisfied with that kind of answer. She gritted her teeth. "What I mean is, how did you manage to do that?" But John was not the type to be easily pressured. He replied seriously, "Why should I tell you?" At this moment, Miss Hoa could no longer maintain her composure. Her voice was almost pleading, with a sincere gaze like a lost child. "Thanks to the notebook you gave me, I was able to know about it. She lived her whole life for this, you see. She has searched for it for over 15 years, even when being kicked out of her house. She begs you..." She tightly grasped John's hand, trembling. A moment of silence passed between them. John looked at his desperate aunt in front of him and sighed lightly. "All right, but you have to promise me 3 things. The first thing is you must not tell anyone about me without my permission. Of course, that includes my older brother and my father." "Why is that?" Miss Hoa blinked and asked, but John answered immediately after a second of hesitation. "Because I don't like others talking about me without my consent." Hearing this, Miss Hoa's gaze suddenly softened. It was unclear what she was thinking, but her face suddenly turned somber. "I understand," she said as she looked at her aunt, who suddenly fell silent. John was a bit surprised. Why did she look so unhappy? But instead of asking, he continued to state the next condition. "The second thing is you must not lie to me because we need to trust each other. I will also tell you the truth to the best of my ability." Miss Hoa paused for a moment and then nodded, much more serious. "All right. So what is the last thing?" Regarding the last thing in a moment, a year later, early in the morning, mist still lingered on the stones in the training yard. In the quiet space, the sound of a sword swinging decisively echoed. John was diligently practicing as usual. Young master, a hurried voice cut through the atmosphere. John turned around and saw Kawa running towards him, clutching a letter tightly in both hands, panic on his face. Nurse, what's going on that you had to run all the way here? Even though I can hardly breathe, Koa still tried to present the letter as if this item was more important than life itself. Here, take a look at this. John took it, glancing down at the familiar handwriting. Just one look and he already knew what was happening. The corners of his mouth slightly lifted, he thought to himself. It has finally arrived. The letter contained a brief, decisive message with not a word wasted, a summons for the subject of the 9th Prince John, scheduled for September 10th at 10 a.m. Content: those participating in the naming ceremony must gather at the central arena before 10 a.m. on September 10th. Note: anyone bringing items outside the stipulated list will face severe punishment. The representative of the Myong family, upon reading the name Myong-jong-jeon's gaze froze. He mumbled, "The representative is the head of the Myong family, isn't Father home? I haven't heard any news about him presenting." Before he could think further, the naming ceremony was Gi Ong-hwa suddenly yelled as if someone had just splashed a bucket of fire on her. John turned in surprise to see her eyes wide open, her face flushed red as if about to smoke. "Why are you suddenly so agitated?" Gi Ong-hwa pulled at her hair, her mouth stuttering as if trying to contain a storm within. Everything had only just gotten into motion. Now was the most crucial moment. If participating in the naming ceremony, you will be stuck there. No, don't participate. With an expression resembling a child whose favorite toy has been taken away, John could only sigh. It has been a year since the agreement with her. Since then, she and I have been researching the combination of raw magic and revealed magic, a completely new magic system, the dream of her life. Raw magic helps store and transform, while revealed magic allows for control and operation. Thanks to that, my magical abilities have now surpassed any child. My peers Gi Ong-hwa still mutter that it is truly a regret not to be able to participate. Researching magic is still more interesting, but I don't want to prolong it any further. John concluded decisively. She knows it's not possible, right? Don't worry, even if the time is reduced a bit, I will still continue practicing magic and restoring ancient magic. That statement made Gi Ong-hwa's eyes widen. Huh. How can that be done? The training schedule for the naming ceremony will be very intense, but John remained undaunted, his eyes shining with an unyielding faith. I will accomplish both at the same time. This is the moment I must pour all my strength into imparting every drop of experience to him. Thinking about the enormous potential ahead, Zhang Guo's hand unconsciously clenched in his heart, giving rise to an indescribable feeling, not just surprise but also excitement. The passion that seemed to have cooled long ago was burning fiercely again. Time doesn't wait for anyone. After the intense training session, John sighed, stretching while muttering, "Finally, it's over." This family is really insane. To train their magic resistance, do they just throw themselves into magical devices? But I didn't expect that there would be a person over there. Sorry about that. John shrugged, seemingly noticing that people's gazes toward him began to change. Anyway, it's time to take a little break. Just as he was about to turn away, it was as if fate was playing tricks. A shadow dashed out from the side. In that moment, John reacted like a pre-programmed machine. His arm shot up decisively, ready to counter the sneak attack. The attacker was none other than the girl Hoa. "Your attack failed," she shouted coldly. "Hey, you little brat, come here for a moment." Jean, of course, wasn't the type to play along with someone else's script. He stepped back, frowning. "What are you up to, Hoa?" Losing her composure, she yelled, "Watch your words! I am the legitimate child, while you are just the illegitimate one. Moreover, I'm a year older than you." John didn't feel like arguing with a child like her. Wasting time arguing was worse than training with a sword in a snowstorm. He simply waved his hand. "I don't have time to bicker with you." After saying that, the young man decisively turned to leave, but Hoa's anger was not so easily extinguished. The girl channeled her magical power into her fist, shouting, "Hey, don't ignore me!" Bye. Sensing the magical fluctuations from behind, John immediately turned around, his expression darkening. "You dare to use magic, I was going to let this slide, but I guess I have to teach you a lesson." The punch came close, but before it could land, John tilted his body to dodge gracefully. At the same time, his hand reached out, grabbing the collar of Hoa and lifting her off the ground. His voice coldly warning, "If you want to complain, go complain to your mother. Don't bother me, I'm very busy too." With that, John let go of Hoa, staggering as he landed. But instead of admitting defeat, she started pouring out all her grievances. "It's all your fault. Because you caused a commotion at the selection ceremony, I keep being compared to you. Please know your place as an illegitimate child and stay quiet. It's so unfair. I train hard every day while you were born with more talent than me. I don't want it to be this way, but my mother came here. Hoa realized she had said too much quickly, covering her mouth with her hand. John raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk appearing with sarcasm. Blaming others is so easy, isn't it? As you said, I'm the illegitimate child, and this status doesn't allow me the luxury of that right. Are you losing sleep? Then don't sleep anymore. If you can't keep up without snacking, then skip the main meal too. If I make you mad, then use every means to defeat me. After that, I have to apologize to you because that is the style of the Sung Mulan family. Without waiting for Hoa to react, John turned and walked away, his steps firm and not looking back. Behind her, the girl clenched her fists and shouted loudly, "That brat talks tough at the naming ceremony. I will show superior achievements over you, forcing you to call me sister, begging on your knees." No one needed to announce that cold aura made all the servants bow down. The lady has arrived. One person spoke respectfully, Madam Beach Watson. Coldly nodding, she said, "Step back, I need to talk to my daughter." After that, she walked into the training room where Hoa was focused on hitting the dummy, sweat dripping onto the cold, tiled floor. Only one question rang out, "What are you doing?" Hoa jumped and turned around, her hands freezing in midair. Recognizing the familiar voice, she stammered, "Mom, I'm training." Hoa's gaze was downcast, not daring to meet her mother's sharp gaze. And just as she predicted, Beach Watson did not come to praise. She came to dissect all of her daughter's failures with words colder than ice. "I've heard the story you were actually overpowered by it." The icy voice rang out from behind the door that had just opened. Beach Watson stood there like a brewing storm, her eyes filled with disappointment and pressure. "I told you, if you can't suppress it, then crush it. It's really disappointing if you're suffering like this just because you're afraid of punishment, then stop." Her words were like daggers cutting deep into Hoa's heart. After a few seconds of silence, as if something inside her had risen, she slowly lifted her head, her determined gaze meeting her mother's. "I know what you think about my training, but I'm doing it because I want to. I will defeat that guy, but not because you ordered me to, but because I want to do it. I will decide for myself." The answer made Beach Watson narrow her eyes slightly. Although her face did not change color, a bad feeling began to rise in her heart. She muttered softly, "Are you being stirred up by an unknown person? You are the direct descendant of the Sung Mulan family, and it are not the same from the starting point. That guy is obvious, and yet you let yourself be stirred." Saying that, she took out a small glass vial from her sleeve, handing it to her daughter with a chilling reminder. "This is Mimong. It is a type of deadly poison. If you can't surpass it, then trample it. That is the way of the Sung Mulan family." Not saying another word, Beach Watson turned and left the room. At the same time, in another room, a voice of astonishment whispered, "This can't be." The maid Kawa stared wide-eyed at the computer screen, which displayed the latest results from the internal evaluation system of the Sung Mulan family. Li Yan male, level 1 magic power, level 1 weapon skills, level 1 theory, overall level 1. Right next to her, John smiled brightly like a spring breeze, crossing his arms in pride. "What do you say? The wet nurse is less worried now, right?" Kawa could hardly contain her emotions as she hugged her little master tightly, her voice trembling but full of pride. "I didn't help you at all yet. You've done so well." John chuckled softly in reply. "You've helped me a lot, don't say that." Just then, heavy footsteps suddenly rang out from outside, shattering the warm moment between the two. The door burst open. "Come on! Little one, time for practice." Mr. Hoa rushed in like a storm, his face blazing with enthusiasm, as if he had just eaten a whole barrel of fire. John blinked, and before he could gather his thoughts, he blurted out, "But I just finished practicing." Mr. Hoa declared loudly, raising his arm to show off his muscles like a superhero. "That's why we need to keep going. Practicing magic will help you feel less tired." John looked at her with the gaze of a middle-aged man observing the child talking nonsense. "I've never heard of that effect before." Mr. Hoa paused, his eyes darting to the side, stammering, Really? It must be like that." Seeing this, John shook his head lightly but said nothing more. He remembered something and spoke seriously. "Well, it's okay. After all, I have something I want to show you." This statement immediately changed Mr. Hoa's expression from curiosity to shock. Could it be that you have reached the first star level? John did not answer, only smiled softly enough to confirm everything. The technique for controlling magic typically has 3 distinct phases: solid form, body solidification, Qigong transforming the nature of magic chi channels, and releasing extraordinary power. However, Mr. Hoa's magic system divides it according to special levels that can combine both modern and ancient elements. At this moment, Mr. Hoa transmitted magic into John and focused on sensing it. A moment later, she exclaimed as if she had just won the lottery, "Perfect! It really is the first star level." Do you feel strange when using magic? I thought it would take at least another year. John shivered slightly, recalling those months of struggling in darkness filled with hardship and the risk of death. I realized this while studying the theory. Looking back, it was indeed a kind of insane training. If you fail to control the magic, the balance between the heart and the magic circuit could completely collapse. But in reality, just letting everything happen naturally is enough. Magic is like water, it will flow according to its inherent laws. In the end, our bodies are just vessels for magic. John's calm and indifferent words fell like a drop of water on the surface of a lake, causing Mr. Hoa's mind to waver slightly. She paused for a few seconds and murmured, "The body is a vessel. Little one, I think I can do it too. It will take time, but I can do it." Unlike usual this time, her voice was not filled with excitement or silliness, but rather a gentle joy, soaked with the feeling of having realized something important. Seeing this, John smiled gently, a small smile but filled with reassurance, as if he had just seen a glimmer of light at the end of the road. What has she just comprehended? John wondered. But that peaceful moment didn't last long, because just a second later, Gi Onghua rushed in to hug him tightly like a bear with its prey and shouted, "Thank you, little darling, you truly are my luck." Before he could react, Aunt Ut's arm tightened like a steel clamp, making his bones crack ominously. "Hey, let go, I'm going to break a rib." It wasn't until he heard a real scream that Gi Onghua finally let him go, showing no signs of remorse. On the contrary, she eagerly switched to a new topic. "Great, then let's move on to the second stage now. From the very beginning, you knew your first stage was different from the usual first stage, right? So in your opinion, what do you think you are best at?" John raised his hand to stroke his chin, pondering for a moment, as if considering his entire journey before replying, "What I'm best at, I think, is swordsmanship." But before he could finish, Gi Onghua immediately shook her head and interrupted, "I don't think so." John was startled, frowning and asking back, "But you've never seen me practice swordsmanship, have you?" Gi Onghua shrugged and replied with a half-joking, half-serious expression, "I have just a few times when I was free. What I mean is that you have a talent that surpasses even swordsmanship. It's hard to explain in words, but your greatest talent is magic power. Your talent for magic power is so outstanding that everything else pales in comparison. I have tried to teach the magic I created to many people, but no one could do it." Hearing this, John's gaze dimmed slightly, and he lowered his head to look at his 2 hands, as if searching for something he had once lost. "Before I returned to the past, I was mocked for being unable to use magic power. A series of vague memories resurfaced the days of being looked down upon, indifferent glances, pitying remarks. But for you right now, reaching the second tier isn't difficult. If you succeed with the second tier, then the naming ceremony is just like for a child. By the way, miss, what is that thing next to you?" He glanced at a wooden box placed on the table. "Oh, that's this," Mr. Hoa said softly, and then swept a sharp gust of wind across John's face, leaving a thin mark on his cheek. Before the strange object crashed straight into the wall behind, causing the bricks to crack and break. "It's a steel ball." Before the strange object slammed into the wall behind, causing the bricks to crack and break. "It's a steel ball. You need to learn how to release magic power while moving. If you just stand still and use it, then real magic power is no different from being useless." "All right, let's get started." Gi Onghua smiled brightly, showing no signs of regret at all. John, however, had a very bad feeling about this deadly training. Time flew by in the blink of an eye, transitioning to a large arena where John and Hoa stood facing Li Jungwan, the captain of the Blood Tiger team. "From now on, I will guide you on the techniques of Young Muiga, choose the weapons that you will use, and bring them here within a minute. So don't dawdle, don't delay." John and Hoa rushed towards the rack picking their weapons, but while choosing, Hoa kept sneaking glances at John. Finally, unable to endure any longer, John gritted his teeth and said, "What are you looking at?" "What do you want to say?" Hoa jumped, stammering to deny, "What am I looking at? There's nothing to say." Then quickly leaned in to whisper, "You're using a sword, right?" John coldly replied, no. Without saying more, he picked up 2 swords and a spear and turned back to the training ground. Hua widened his eyes. But I saw you clearly learning to use a sword before. Over here, Captain Yong glanced at the pile of weapons in John's hands and frowned, asking, "What are you doing?" You told us to choose our weapons and bring them, John replied casually. Deng Hua emphasized again, "I said to choose the one you use." John shrugged as if it was not important. "Well, these are the things I use." At this point, Captain Blood Tiger was completely at a loss. He shook his head in frustration and said, "I thought you weren't that stupid, but it turns out you're a blockhead." Remember my words well. I said I would teach you the secret technique, but it's not about any moves or stances. In Deng Mui Ga, there are countless secret skills called Ngu Yi. To comprehend that secret skill first, you must awaken the essence that is still sleeping within your blood vessels. From now on, I will help you awaken it. So don't worry too much about awakening your instincts. Just as he finished speaking, Deng Huan swung his spear powerfully. Each gust of wind howled with every sharp and rapid movement, causing him to quickly enter an attacking stance. Seeing his tiger-like stance, Hoa couldn't help but shiver, unable to suppress his worry, and exclaimed, "What is he planning to do?" As for John, he had somewhat guessed what was about to happen, turning to warn in a calm and cold voice, "If you don't want to faint right from the start, be prepared." Before he finished, Young One's figure flashed like lightning, swooping down in a strike, and immediately closed in on John, launching a powerful blow that sent him flying. Fortunately, in that split second, John was still able to react, using his sword to block the attack and reduce most of the impact. That action made Young One burst into a big laugh, surprised. "You managed to block that." On the other side, John gently landed, gritting his teeth. A flurry of thoughts raced in his mind. Damn it! I didn't expect to go through this madness again. In his past life, he hadn't even completed this training course, but this lifetime is different. Time passed in relentless training under the special care of Captain Jungwan. The two of them, John and Hoa, were continuously tortured. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say they were being beaten up in the literal sense. Thus, a full month has passed since John started this hellish training course. You secretly think a child just 10 years old having to undergo training that can cause fractures and internal injuries is indeed not meant for kids. But I have no intention of complaining. I'm gradually feeling that sensation, John mumbled while wearing a vague smile at the corners of his lips. In another corner, the girl Hoa jolted awake, her face still pale with shock. "Did I faint again?" The question arose full of confusion. John just shrugged and replied nonchalantly, "That's right, that's your 22nd time already. I only have 16 times." That teasing tone was no different from provoking an angry cat. Hua immediately got angry, wiping her tears full of regret. "If only I had prepared better on the first day." At this moment, the view shifted to Captain Jungwan, who was standing not far away. He watched the scene of the two children bickering slowly, calculating in his mind. "Miss Ba, this child has extraordinary physical abilities. I might have used too much strength, yet it has never been seriously injured. As for that wild child, from the very first day I had a feeling he was something valuable. At first, seeing him bring a pile of weapons, I thought he was a fool. Little did I know his skill with each item was not bad, even exceeding expectations. When entering actual combat for just 1 month and getting results like this, it's really interesting." Then with a booming voice like thunder, he shouted loudly, "All right, let's start training. Everyone back to your positions." Hearing the command, both John and Hoa immediately stopped arguing, gripping their weapons tightly, their expressions becoming extremely serious. Soon, John realized a bitter truth: if he kept fighting like before, he would never have a chance to touch Jungwan. So he glanced at Hoa and quickly said, "Hey, I'll signal you try to block once." Hoa asked in surprise, "Why should I do that?" John shrugged and replied, "Like it or not, well, if you don't want to, that's fine. I just think I might be able to land a blow on that uncle." Upon hearing this, Hoa's face immediately changed, seeming like she also harbored a deep resentment towards Jungwan. After endless sessions of punishment, she gritted her teeth and asked again, "Are you sure?" John nodded firmly. "Absolutely." Without needing more words, Hoa immediately tightened her grip on her weapon and charged straight ahead, shouting, "This is for you." Right after her, John also rushed in, accurate as if he had planned it beforehand. A decisive thought echoed in his mind: with his genius strength, he had no chance of winning, so the only way left was to take advantage of the numbers. On the opposite side, Jung Hwan observed how the two coordinated. A smile involuntarily crept onto his lips, as if he found something interesting. In his eyes, he did not hesitate to make the remark, "Coordinating together. Not a bad choice, but that's if the plan succeeds." As soon as he finished speaking, Dong Quang tilted his head, slightly dodging the stabbing attack that was rushing towards him from John. A simple move, as if he had foreseen everything. Right after that, he quickly counterattacked with a swift spear thrust. But John had already predicted that movement beforehand. As soon as he saw the opponent move, he quickly withdrew his weapon and defended in time. Jung Hwan's eyes suddenly sparkled with surprise, but he didn't stop there. Just a moment later, he instantly gathered his strength and charged forward at a terrifying speed. Just at the moment when both sides were about to unleash their decisive moves, John suddenly shouted, "Now is the time!" After saying that, he stepped back to widen the distance. Immediately, Hoa rushed in, replacing the sword in his hand, striking down like a bolt of lightning. However, that determined attack was easily blocked by Dong Quang. From behind, John quietly observed, fully aware that this wouldn't be easy. The two of them wouldn't be able to take down Jung Hwan with just a simple strike. At that moment, he decided to change strategy, throwing the spear aside and focusing energy into the special ring, the infinite weapon he possessed. In the blink of an eye, the ring transformed into a sparkling longsword. This is one of the few weapons that can deal real damage, the sword that he obtained from the endless secret vault. Once again, channeling power into his feet, and with the speed of an arrow, John charged straight ahead, the sword in his hand radiating a blazing momentum. At the same time, Hoa was knocked back by a powerful blow from the trainer, but John seized that precious opportunity. He released the sword, shifted his weight to his fist, and threw a straight punch with all his strength, seemingly destined to hit. But no, Jung Hwan easily caught his fist with just one hand. That brief moment made John let out a forced laugh. "Ha ha, you blocked it!" Before his question could settle, a thunderous punch from Jung Hwan sent John's body flying like a cannonball. He slammed hard into the wall, unable to hold back, and coughed up blood. Nevertheless, the recent coordinated attack was still enough to satisfy Dong Quan. His calm voice rang out with a hint of appreciation. "So it took 37 days. Congratulations, you've unlocked the sixth sense, but the girl is still far from it." As he spoke, Dong Quan leaned to avoid another blow from Hoa and unexpectedly swept his leg, causing her to fall against the wall with no chance of resistance. Looking at the two children sprawled out, Dong Quan seemed to think that was enough for today. He calmly declared, "Let's end it here for today." Soon the sound of arguing rose again. Hoa sprang up, turned to John, and angrily questioned, "You said you could land a hit, that I believed in you, little brat." Ignoring the two children arguing, Jung Hwan turned and walked away. In the meantime, he discreetly glanced at his palm, which was now slightly swollen. A cold thought crossed his mind. In the end, even after activating the magical power, it only penetrated a little. Even if it's just a small amount, I have broken the taboo of not using magical power. Giving up a technique like that, combined with an exceptional fighting instinct, will make one a source of fear for the pillars of the clan. Time passed quickly like the wind, and by the 47th day, Hoa had also unlocked the sixth sense. The training session with Captain Dong Quan officially came to an end. During the remaining time, both were allowed to rest and review what they had learned. It was at this moment that someone appeared in front of Seon, none other than his brother Li Mi Yong from Lim Yongjong. The eldest son of this clan, whose title is Song Seon, instills fear in both the magical and martial arts communities. He is a two-star master in both fields, a figure whom everyone respects, yet is cautious of. But to John, he is neither a legend nor an idol, just simply his only brother. John took a deep breath, reminding himself to return to reality. After both had sat down, Min Young spoke up, his voice filled with regret. "I'm sorry for not being able to pay attention to you, even if it was just an excuse, but I've been a bit busy lately." John gently replied, his calm gaze suggesting he understood long ago. "It's okay, I'm fine." Opposite him, Myung-jong laughed upon seeing John's somewhat reserved yet sincere attitude. "I guess it's the first time we meet today, but how did you know who I am?" John did not beat around the bush, responding straightforwardly, "Of course, right. Even though I'm an illegitimate child as your younger brother, how could I not know my older brother's face?" Upon hearing this, Myung-jong's entire body seemed to freeze for a moment. His gaze briefly turned sad, and in a low voice he reminded, "Besides wild beasts, never say that again. Even though our mother gave birth to us differently, you and I are still siblings." That statement was not only a reminder, but also a heartache for Myung-jong. He felt bitter for John, a child who had not even had a naming ceremony, yet always viewed himself as an outsider to the clan, unaware of his brother's thoughts. John just awkwardly scratched his head, whispering, "I'm sorry." Seeing that expression, Min Young-dong just sighed, a heavy breath filled with feelings that did not require an apology. Just understanding is enough. Next time there's no need for such formal greetings. We're siblings, why be so polite? Yes, I understand. John smiled and nodded. In the memories from his previous life, John always remembered his older brother. No matter how talented he was, he always maintained sincerity and calmness, not wanting to make the story too heavy. Minyoung then changed the subject and took out a gift from his pocket. This is a welcome gift for when you enroll at the Fan Magic University in France. I got this, but I think it will be more useful for you. This is a type of elixir called nectar. As he spoke, he gently placed a small glass vial in front of John. The clear light inside emanated a special energy. The moment he saw the object, John immediately realized that it was a type of superior elixir made at the Magic Tower in France. Every 15 units produced 500 milliliters, a true treasure. After a moment of thought, John raised his hand to take the jar, his eyes shining with deep appreciation. Big Brother gave me something so precious, I really thank you, Big Brother. However, this reaction seemed to surprise Miguel, the older brother, who slowly muttered as if talking to himself, "You're a bit different, huh?" John narrowed his eyes slightly in suspicion. "What do you mean?" At this moment, Min Young smiled gently and explained, "The younger ones I've met before considered me an opponent, so this feeling is both strange and pleasant." John just smiled lightly and expressed his true thoughts. "I'm not without considering you an opponent, since being born into this family, you are also my rival. So don't just see me as a cute child. Who knows, one day I might become your greatest rival. I hope we will have an interesting competition." The confidence clear in John's eyes made Miguel laugh heartily. "Haha, fine, I will wait for that day, the day you become my strongest rival." Saying that, he gently ruffled his younger brother's hair, patting it affectionately. Filled with hope, John silently promised himself that his older brother had always genuinely loved and protected him, and this time he would definitely protect him. Time passed, and a few days later was the day of the second most important exam of the Sung Mulan family. The naming ceremony officially began on the shore of a boat, cutting through the waves heading toward the venue. John and Hoa stood silently next to each other, being taken to a special island. Red Green Island, where the color of the land changes according to the density of magical power in the air. This is the ancient location that the Sung Mulan family uses to hold naming ceremonies for new members. As the boat approached the island, a crew member stepped out seriously, announcing, "I will now guide you about the naming exam. The young lady and young master will have to survive on Red Green Island for 3 weeks and prove themselves. The devices given to everyone now are for location tracking. Unless in an emergency situation, they must always be carried on their person. The final challenge of the exam will open 2 days after the end of the 3rd week. Good luck to you all." As soon as they set foot on the island, the atmosphere changed as if warning of a harsh journey about to begin. Suddenly, Hoa spoke up hesitantly. "I have something to say." But before she could finish, John sighed as if he had predicted what she was about to reveal. "Looks like you've made your decision." "Huh? What do you mean?" Hoa asked wide-eyed. "Ever since training, you've been wanting to say something," John said straightforwardly. Jian's blunt words seemed to hit a weak point, causing her to blush, and she immediately shouted as if to hide her embarrassment. How did you know?" Seeing Hoa's pitifully awkward expression, John couldn't help but chuckle silently. "How could I not know?" You tilt your head, your tone as if trying to soothe a pouting child. "Go ahead, I will listen." From Hoa's perspective, she swallowed nervously. After gathering her courage for a moment, she took off the badge from her chest, her eyes glancing at John, conveying a clear signal that made John understand her meaning. John also removed his badge and both quickly stored the device, which was known to be capable of tracking and eavesdropping on all conversations. Once everything was safe, John asked, his tone no longer playful. "It's all done, what's going on?" At this point, Hoa no longer concealed anything. From her pocket, she pulled out a glass vial containing a murky solution and spoke clearly. "This is poison called Mimong. It is only effective on children under 15 years old. If exposed to air for more than 5 minutes, it will evaporate on its own. Once it seeps into the body, it will cause the magical veins to become blocked for a long time." Upon hearing this, Jian's face immediately darkened, his voice lowered. "Who did you get it from?" A simple question, but as heavy as a stone. Hoa knew very well that no matter what she said, she absolutely could not reveal that name. The one who gave this to her was her biological mother, so she firmly replied, "I don't intend to tell you that." With that, she swung her hand and threw the glass vial straight at a nearby rock. The sound of shattering echoed along with the sparkling shards flying out. From Hoa's side, she lifted her head decisively and continued, "See now, there's no evidence left. I will defeat you fairly without needing to use this poison, so you should give it your all in the competition." That attitude surprised John for a moment, but then he smiled softly and nodded. Even without saying it, I was already planning to do so. Very well. After that, both put their badges back on their clothes, preparing to leave. But before leaving, Hoa turned back and reminded like a young elder, "Did you put the tracking device back on? Don't take unnecessary risks in the center of the island when you're not familiar with the terrain. It's very dangerous." From behind, John sighed in boredom, shaking his head in dismay. Yeah, I know already. Are you worried about me?" Immediately, that statement seemed to strike a nerve, causing Hoa to explode. "What do you mean, worried? I'm just afraid that before you can fight me, you'll end up dead somewhere." Just after she shouted, a chilling scream echoed from deep within the dense forest. Both immediately fell silent, looking towards the source of the sound, their eyes becoming alert. In that moment of silence, Hoa lowered her voice to remind with a short but weighty sentence, "Then don't die, I'm going ahead." Saying that, she quickly turned and walked towards the left side of the path. Her figure gradually shrank among the dense foliage, leaving Zeon standing alone watching her mumble, as if talking to himself. "She's gone. Even so, my goal is not the outskirts of the island. A clear difference. All right, I also have to get going. Straight towards the center of Shikten Island. On the other side of the observation room, Myeongjong was also watching every development. Hearing the cruel, sarcastic remarks aimed at his younger brother, he could no longer keep his composure. He glanced at each face around him, then coldly reminded, "Don't say anything more." In a dangerous place like this, finding shelter first is a wise decision. There's nothing to criticize. Those words made a few people who were mocking cough awkwardly, then try to cover up with empty remarks. Yeah, that's true. Haha, maybe we've been looking at Miss Ba too much, so our standards have risen. However, not everyone knows to be cautious of the cunning old man thinking nothing of the eldest brother of the Sungmu clan, continuing to throw jabs. Look, in the Sungmu clan, acting like a commoner is a sin. Isn't it ridiculous for someone of Sungmu blood to behave like a commoner? Those harsh words made Miguel clench his fists. He did not respond, but inside he was boiling. How did it come to this? Belittling a child from our clan because of their background? Or rather, have we always been like this? But more importantly, what exactly is Lee Zeon planning to do by heading straight to the center of the island like that? That thought made him instinctively look towards the uncle of both of them. At that moment, he was continuously biting his nails, his eyes full of worry. A mumble escaped his lips. "Oh my, what on earth is this kid thinking?" That statement made Myeongjong realize that he wasn't the only one feeling confused. He sighed softly. "What are you really planning to do?" So meanwhile, John had found a cave deep in the forest, a secluded place to take shelter. He did not act recklessly. Before entering the cave, John burned a handful of herbs and threw a fire-swallowing stick inside. The light and smoke spread out to check if there were any creatures hiding. Then he covered the entrance with leaves. Every action was precise, with no unnecessary steps. A few whispers of agreement arose from the observers. His hiding skills aren't bad. Suddenly, the old man shouted with wide eyes, "Wait! Hold on, what is that kid doing?" All eyes immediately focused on the screen. The image showed John taking off his watch and badge, 2 tracking devices, and setting them aside. Next, he covered both devices with leaves. Instantly, the monitoring screen turned black. Behind, Captain Jungwon burst out laughing, unable to hide his delight. "Ha ha! You really can't predict it." Meanwhile, both Taehong and Mi-gyong could only hold their heads in despair. In fact, for John, that action was necessary. He couldn't let those scrutinizing eyes track all his secrets. After hiding all the devices, he quietly murmured, "There's no need for others to see this. Now I can use it infinitely. Once I'm at Shichthan Island, I have to harvest as much as possible. Come on, let's go now!" As he spoke, he transformed the ring on his hand into a bunch of sharp swords ready for the hunts. As time passed quickly, evening fell. In the flickering firelight, John was sitting in front of a clay pot, frowning as he stared intently at the liquid inside, a thick bluish liquid that looked just like poison. To the extent that he felt as if he could see a screaming face within that water. He murmured, unable to hide his doubts. It must be done, but it looks terrible. Is this really without magic power? Old memories from the previous life resurfaced. Due to not having enough money to buy even cheap elixirs, he had to follow some herbalists to seek magic power. Now, in a place like Shichthen Island, where magic power is dense in the air, if it's not utilized to increase magic power, it would be a huge waste. All right. He lifted the pot and brought it close to his mouth. Not long after the clay pot was thrown aside and John collapsed, his entire body pale as if he had just been drained of life force. He whispered, "It truly tastes like it comes from hell." And thus, the solitary battle that lasted 3 weeks officially began. On the 18th day of the office naming ceremony of Miguel Jong under the clear blue sky, a not-so-large house with a classic design appeared. Mi Hyung Jong was sitting attentively working in the office when suddenly a voice called out, "Sir, may I come in?" He looked up and noticed, "Oh, come in." At that moment, a subordinate appeared from afar and walked in. "I'm sorry to disturb you while you are working." Mi Hyung Jong did not mind responding with a concerned smile. "It's fine." Judging by the person's expression, there must be bad news, right? This person entered and solemnly announced that a large group of wanderers seemed to have entered northern Korea. He is Iu Jiang Hoen, deputy captain of the sword team under Myung Dong. He stood straight serious, adhering to the rules without wasting a second reporting detailed information to Mi Hyung. At first, I thought they would disrupt the development area of the danger zone, but they are moving south, 2 days' journey to a magical stone quarry of the Myung Dong clan. Somewhat grim, he rubbed his chin, contemplating the wanderers, the criminals roaming the area. Then he continued to analyze, wanting to get opinions from Jiang Hoen. Those hyenas won't invade the territory of the clan without a reason. Ian Huyn also had doubts in his heart, pointing out some suspicious areas. On the surface, they seem like wanderers, but it could just be a disguise. There must be some force behind them. Myung Dong kept tapping his fingers on the table, feeling somewhat concerned about this matter. There is also news that the Nine Dragons clan has moved troops to the northern border. From the information he gathered, one can see that the colossal power of the Central Plains Nine Dragons clan continuously provokes the Shungmu clan by encroaching on the undeveloped land of Mihyong. While he lowered his eyes as if thinking of some of their intentions, it seemed that the information about his father leaving the clan had been leaked. This must be a great opportunity for hostile forces. Mi Hyun Jong wanted to try to confirm the situation, so he spoke up to ask about the information just received. "Has the clan's intelligence department been informed?" Jang Hoon replied loudly in a report, "Thanks to your previous order for surveillance, we have captured the clan's intelligence more quickly. You also somewhat have an urgent solution." In his heart, Mi Hyun Jong immediately stood up to make a decision. "Then let's first cooperate with the intelligence department to find out more." He pulled the chair in, turned around, and looked outside. Surely there was still something. Miriam Dong, with both hands behind his back, tried to maintain a calm exterior, but inside he felt anxious, hoping this was just a wrong feeling. The scenery changed as night fell. In a place deep in the dark forest, a red magic circle appeared. Here, unexpectedly, there was a change. The symbols in the middle suddenly flashed brightly. Just a second later, layers of space cracked open, revealing a black hole in the middle with some kind of prop making a continuous clinking sound, gradually coming out, appearing on the outside. Next was a person with a smirk on their lips, part of their hair obscuring their face. This mysterious person suddenly appeared in the dark forest. Only a silhouette could be vaguely seen, with a cold voice ringing out, "Are 2 nights enough to kill a bastard child?" Under the clear sky, near the dark forest in the distance, was a wave-lapped beach, with horrifying loud cries ringing out continuously along with the powerful footsteps of wild beasts. The source of those tremors was a monster resembling a dragon combined with a crocodile moving around and breathing heavily. They are a level 7 dragon monster race Draco Ion, suddenly appearing before it, gripping a sword tightly, breathing heavily. Draco raised its head high, taking a deep breath that made its belly swell red. Just seconds later, it spread its wings with all its strength, breathing fire in a long line. Nothing could survive under that power. He stared wide-eyed, his face serious, showing clear signs of tension, sweating. Ion nimbly seized the opportunity as the flames approached. He leaned back to dodge the large flames right beside him. Ion Yu Brother Dung cast a spell on the sword, pulling it straight forward. Ion jumped up high with the internal strength that had accumulated before, without hesitation facing Draco head-on. With his loud shout, lightning bolts appeared continuously, combined with the determination to move forward. Yong jumped right onto its head without hesitation, thrusting his sword combined with electricity, tearing the sky. Draco could not avoid it, nor could it withstand it, immediately burning black and collapsing. He let out a sigh of relief, clenched his fist, and raised it to wipe away the sweat. Ion's clothes were also affected, burned in several places. He glanced over and exclaimed, "Indeed, it is different being a dragon. If we were still on the edge of the Shichthan Island area, we would have been knocked out by the first blow." Yong sheathed his sword and sighed. In his heart, he thought, "It wasn't until the 19th day that I reached the center of Than Island, the domain of dragons, but staying here too long is just a waste of time." Yong didn't waste time here. He quickly turned around, thinking, "There is another reason I came this deep." Suddenly, Yong's foot stopped moving in mid-step. His sixth sense was keenly aware. Ion was extremely alert, immediately going into a defensive stance. "Why again?" He plopped down on the ground, leaning against a tree, his gaze fixed straight ahead into the darkness. Frowning, a sharpness emanated from his eyes and thoughts. Indeed, another wave of monsters appeared before him. This time they came in packs resembling both humans and lizards. According to records, they are level 8 monsters, the Lizard Man. Yong did not run, standing in a hidden corner, observing their every move. Since yesterday, there had been something unusual. The lizard men were supposed to live on the outskirts, yet they appeared in the center. However, when I attacked, they only fled and did not resist. He thought seriously, rubbing his chin. The lower-level lizard men, lacking in intelligence, must have been influenced by something. Coming up with a plan without hesitation, Yong drew his sword and charged forward. If that is the case, the lizard men would quickly sense it. One of them glanced over. At its loud roar, the others quickly turned and fled. He successfully placed his bet, fearlessly charging faster and faster forward. Indeed, as expected, Yong slashed through with sharp, continuous strikes. One by one, they could not dodge and lost their lives. He stood small among a pile of lizardman corpses, thinking to himself, "Once could be a coincidence, but the second time cannot be. I must pursue." The sun was gradually setting, the sunset enveloping the sky. The chilling sounds echoed through the trees. Nyumbing fought from within this forest, while a voice came accompanied by ominous purple currents. The one who initiated the battle was none other than that mysterious person. He sat cross-legged, his eyes turned towards the sunset. The bloodlust was indeed bizarre. To think that he could single-handedly eliminate so many, but it should be fine now that it has approached closely. He continued to speak to himself intently. After all, it was still just a child. This person is the tamer of monsters, Nishizama Sogo. He merely smiled calmly, glancing back at a naive one easily caught in the trap due to lack of experience. Sogo sheltered some creature in his arms, his eyes lowered gently, uttering, "Perhaps I won't need to use that which I had prepared." Yong did not know when he had stood on the tree. You have a broad view of the situation and can judge so clearly that we have begun to suspect. But it turns out this is indeed a trap, the ability to control monsters, a tamer. Yong frowned, trying to shield himself as much as possible. How could an outsider get into Crimson Jade Island? You are constantly lost in thought. The strategies are not impossible. What if there is a teleportation setup inside Crimson Jade Island? Just a few minutes later, Yong had a sinister smile in his heart with a perfect plan. There must have been someone from the family involved at that time. You frowned, slowly pulling up the zipper of your jacket, reporting to the family and waiting for reinforcements. Yong was determined, his hand clenched, his gaze focused ahead. Don't think by the time the reinforcements arrive, it will be too late. At that time, information about the mastermind will no longer be in our hands. You immediately put your hand in your pocket. Then there is only one way to continue the plan. Ion immediately activated the invisibility skill. He did not miss the opportunity. Ion rushed down the branch. "We will erase the traces!" You crouched down on the ground, positioning yourself to attack, then leaped forward at high speed. On your own, you flew behind Sogo, swinging your sword, intending to strike him, determined to eliminate them. However, at that moment, a bird in Sogo's hand suddenly woke up as if sensing something dangerous. And then, in an instant, it let out a deafening scream, warning him that Ion was behind, about to attack. Sogo heard the cry and turned his head back in surprise, not knowing when you had arrived. Ion looked at the bird in his hand and thought with dissatisfaction, "Damn, does he have a relic that detects danger?" However, you did not stop, still swinging your sword down at Sogo. He quickly dodged to the side to escape this deadly blow. Sogo struggled on the ground, struggling to speak. "Sung Mulan's offspring is stronger than I thought." Yong stood tall, pointing the tip of his sword at him, responding with contempt. "Or maybe you are just too weak." Sogo quickly waved his hand and shouted loudly, "Shut up!" to stop him. At that moment, 3 green monsters appeared from nowhere following his orders to rush to attack Ion. You quickly tightened your grip on the sword, a stream of sword energy quickly enveloping it. The third form of the 7-star sword style. And then, as quick as lightning, Ion slid past the 3 monsters fast enough to leave only an afterimage and not be seen. You severed the heads of the monsters with the pure heart technique, your expression confident. When you suddenly sensed something was off with your body, you paused for a moment. At that moment, dozens of iron chains bound you, leaving Ion stunned and unable to move. Sogo stood aside, chanting a spell, and when he saw you unable to move, he laughed cunningly. "You've fallen into my trap." At the feet of Ion appeared a mysterious magical circle, continuously manifesting chains that wrapped around his body. Ion looked around his body, speechless in surprise, while Sogo kept provoking, "That formation is a superior magic array capable of sealing the warrior's mana. Without mana, you are nothing but a useless kid. With this immobile body, just accept your tragic fate." Yong stood silently watching Sogo gradually move out of sight, leaving only the green monsters. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Sealing mana?" His face hardened, becoming increasingly resolute. At that moment, Eon's body emitted a powerful aura as if it wanted to devour everything. He shouted loudly, "Just use the mana circuit!" In front of the monsters, Ion broke the chains apart. A small explosion occurred due to the strong force he released. Ion turned towards Sogo, who still didn't know what was happening, casually running away. He leaped over the top of him in confusion. It was only when Ion landed in front of Sogo that he looked at him in shock. With a confident face, Ion pointed his sword at Sogo and exclaimed, "Planning to run away?" Sogo trembled back, looking at Ion and asking, "How can you break the formation?" He calmly looked at him and replied, "There's no reason to tell you. Your image has been sent back to the family through the communication device. Surrender now." Sogo bowed his head, a slight smirk on his lips. "It's fine." And then to Ion's astonishment, Sogo confidently declared, "I will kill you and regain my freedom." Ion was stunned as if he couldn't believe his ears. What? While Ion was still bewildered by his words, a large shadow was attacking him. A massive tail struck hard against Ion's small frame, leaving him no time to dodge and taking the full brunt of the surprise attack. Ion flew fast like a cannonball just fired, heading towards a large tree in the forest. At the end of the attack, his body slammed hard into the tree, causing it to break. As for him, his body was covered in wounds, blood gushing from his mouth. His body trembling and lying motionless on the ground, his mind continuously thinking not to say. Then he weakly raised his head to look forward in fear. A colossal beast resembling a giant turtle appeared before him. The ruler of this land, Demon Hand Mountain, Yong, clutching his wounds, struggling to stand and beginning to calculate. A level 3 nightmare beast, a mere tamer like him, could control Demon Hand Mountain. Sogo looked at him, getting up, and couldn't help but exclaim, "A few words are quite sharp. Although the taming was not yet complete, the order to kill you would definitely be fully carried out." His expression was very calm as he looked at Ion. Sogo raised the staff in his hand, speaking while taking something out. "Don't struggle anymore." He tossed the golden talismans in his hand into the air, saying to the boy, "Accept your fate and go die quietly." Ion crouched down on the ground, quickly thinking of a way to deal with this difficult situation. He gradually became serious, put his hand into his pocket and thought, "Stay calm." If he couldn't completely control the Demon Hand Mountain, then he just needed to capture the tamer. Yong pulled out a pill that looked very simple. He looked at it and thought, "To create an opening before this monster, this is the only way. I never thought I would have to use this one day." Without hesitation, Ion immediately put the pill in his mouth. This is a forbidden drug, as the consequences are far too great compared to the amount of magical power received. As soon as he swallowed the pill, his body was instantly enhanced by a magical force. The explosion behind Ion released flickering streams of energy. With that thought and one more thing, he glanced down at the ring shimmering under his hand. Ion firmly gripped his sword, channeling powerful sword energy into it, continuously thinking that it should only be used in life-threatening situations. Ion's eyes seemed to light up as he thought that now is the moment. From his body emanated powerful forces, causing the ground around him to tremble. With the skill Reverse Heaven technique, Ion jumped off the ground, causing a large hole to appear right beneath his feet. Then Ion flew over, delivering a decisive slash to its massive form. He landed on the ground in a difficult state, thinking that although his skin was not scratched, it still had an effect. Once again, Ion infused the sword with a powerful force. "With this, I will bring it down." The monster let out a terrifying scream that shook the mountains and forests. Yong heard it and was stunned. This was the roar of the Demon Hand Mountain. Pier looked at the large monster before him, realizing that he couldn't move due to the wretched magical field of the Demon Hand Mountain. A mysterious aura unexpectedly emanated from his body. Yang glanced at the dark aura and sighed. The dark energy pushed Pier back. Seizing the opportunity, he quickly ran toward the monster. It was at this moment that Yang gathered all his strength, pulling the sword back behind him to build momentum for a lethal attack. He muttered the technique Void Eclipse, and then Ion swung the sword at the monster, inflicting severe injuries. It opened its mouth towards the sky, letting out a sorrowful cry with powerful inner strength, then collapsed to the ground. The sky immediately cleared and light shone once again. Ion covered his mouth with his hand to prevent a mouthful of blood from spilling out. He held his tired, injured body and collapsed silently, thinking that there was no time to hesitate. The aftermath of the Dan Blast and the Counter Heaven technique will leave me unable to move for long. Yang held his injured body and ran quickly forward, worrying as he went. Only 10 seconds left now. The ghostly hand of Mount has attacked incorrectly. I need to find the tamer right in the forest. Yang ran frantically searching for Sogo, while the time was counting down 8 seconds, 4 seconds. However, he suddenly stopped as if he discovered something. Looking down at the ground, Ion saw a red thread appearing that seemed to be guiding him. Looking at the narrow path in the forest where the thread was pointing, Ion did not hesitate to enter. With 3 seconds counting down at the end of the thread, Sogo appeared as he tried to escape through the gap in the mountain. He turned around in panic and shouted at him, "What? How is that possible?" While Ion was racing against time. For a second you launched yourself, aiming the sharp tip of the sword at Sogo's neck to attack, but in your heart you thought it wasn't enough, just a little bit lacking. If only my body were a bit bigger. Then Ion looked at the sword and shouted, "Then extend it!" The sword truly extended, stabbing into Sogo's throat, causing blood to splatter everywhere. He could only let out a groan before breathing his last. The blood-soaked sword finally fell to the ground, clanging loudly. Ion trembled with each moment sitting in front of Sogo's cold corpse while contemplating. First, I must hold my body steady. If I collapse now, it will truly be the end. You just took a box of something and gulped it all down. She instructed that if using the reversal technique, I must definitely drink this. Luckily, I brought the nectar. Ion's vision gradually faded and his body lost balance, staggering. Before completely losing consciousness, he still thought, "Before the monsters get close, I must fully suppress him." Ion's face showed exhaustion, and his eyes gradually opened, vaguely looking around. Ion's whole body felt like it was being pulled tightly down to the ground, his breath gradually deepening. A whisper echoed around, "Where is this Faye? What happened to the beast Tamer and the demon hunter?" Suddenly, his whole body jolted with a pain that made him contract, and the pupils in his eyes were beginning to stiffen. Yang clenched his fists to endure the pain, shaking all over. He softly mumbled about his condition. "My whole body feels like it's about to shatter." After a while, a green eye opened, staring intently at Yang's motionless body on the floor. "So it has come to this." This voice came from the black mist surrounding his body. "Those things are too dangerous for a human to endure. How can both coexist in one entity?" The black mist wrapped around Eon's hand, and that voice echoed again with a hint of pity. "I had hoped you wouldn't wake up. If only it were now." Then it threw something black and purple in front of him and coldly shouted, "Feed him!" Ion awakened upon hearing the sound and exclaimed in surprise, "What is this?" When seeing a large beehive in front of him, he softly exclaimed, "A purple beehive? Could it be the purple stone of the underworld?" That voice echoed again, reminding him, "It's not you that needs to eat this. It's him." Then in that eye reflected an image of an old turtle, and it advised, "The era has shifted. Grow stronger, child of humanity." That eye gradually faded, and the image of the turtle receded further. The voice also gradually diminished and disappeared. "Don't let yourself be swallowed by the era." Hoa tilted her head with an innocent expression, softly exclaiming, "Oh, are you awake?" Ion vaguely glanced over and exclaimed, "Hoa!" She angrily reminded him and then lowered her voice to ask, "Han, does this brat dare to call you by name?" "Because you are in pain, I will let that pass. How is your body now?" Ion closed his eyes, feeling the energy flow within him. Although his musculoskeletal system was severely damaged, the amount of mana surged tremendously. He slowly opened his eyes and was astonished. "Did I really absorb the purple Ha stone?" Then Ion calmly replied to Hoa's question. "A few mana channels are disrupted, my organs are slightly misaligned. Some bones are cracked and a few muscles are torn. It's not too serious." After hearing this, her face paled and she exclaimed, "What? That's not serious. Ion looked at Hoa seriously and then muttered to himself, originally, the purple Ha stone was something Lai Hua intended to take a terrible elixir that enhances physicality, boosts mana, and grants immunity to poisons and curses. It is indeed what I was determined to obtain at Jiktan Island, but I feel a bit guilty. Indeed, but facing his slightly scrutinizing gaze, she had a bit of doubt. Did you hit your head? Myong jumped up and asked, Wait, how did you get here? From a distance, a loud voice called out, Little brother Myong, with a worried look running over. He replied with a slightly confused tone. Big brother, are you worried? Holding out the medicine, he told his younger brother, Are you okay? First, let me heal with mana. I also brought medicinal water. Yong waved his hand, smiling awkwardly, and replied, Thank you, brother, but I don't need healing with mana. I'll gladly accept your medicinal water. Yong silently watched him drink the medicinal water, yet his gaze towards Yong was full of pity and a bit of pain. Mion turned to say, Hoa, can you step outside for a moment? Yes, I understand. After she left, he turned back to stare at him and said seriously, If you die, I will wipe out all organizations related to the Beast Tamare from this world, no matter how powerful they are. Ion smiled and said, That sounds reassuring. However, right after that, Mi Eon Jong became serious and criticized. As a member of Dung Mu Lan, what you have demonstrated is truly the model of a martial artist, but as an elder brother, I cannot view it positively. That is recklessness. Ion awkwardly scratched his head and said, I didn't anticipate the appearance of the demon hunter. I apologize, brother. If I had known it was there, I would have definitely waited. He slightly bowed his head, closed his eyes, and sighed, replying, You know how to distinguish between recklessness and confidence, so that's good. Suddenly, he made a suggestion. Big brother, since I dealt with the Beast Tamare, the information about him also belongs to me. My Ion raised his hand to rub his temples and said, I knew you would say that. Then he looked up at Ion and announced, That Beast Tamare was once a level 5 mage of the Yin-Yang Liao in Japan. It seems he was expelled for trying to comprehend forbidden techniques. The one behind provided high-level talismans and magical tools and activated them while the demon hunter was asleep. They want to kill me pretending it's the act of a monster. Ion fell into contemplation. His absent-minded gaze asked again, You still haven't found out who the mastermind is. My Ion sighed and continued with important information, making him astonished to the point of wide-eyed shock. He was in a near-mortal state, so it was hard to extract information immediately. Then Ion concluded for himself, So I am not the main target they are aiming for. Brother remained silent for a moment and then asked again, Why do you think that... Ion then presented his deductions. They want to damage your reputation by making everyone believe that you did not detect the intruder and reacted too slowly. My Ion sighed lightly, rubbing his neck, and said, It is indeed so. Just a moment later, his face awkwardly told him, It seems I can't pretend not to know. Ion asked back in an inquisitive tone, Are you okay? He reached out to pat his head and reassure him, It's fine, the reputation is slightly damaged, but it's nothing significant. Mi-Eon looked at Ion with an affectionate gaze and said, You can't be away for long, so you'll come back here. Just as he was about to pull his hand back, the boy grabbed his hand again, calling out loudly, Big brother? His confident gaze and hollow voice made the suggestion, Do you want to make a deal with me? Seeing Mi-Eon still surprised, he explained further, Let's say you anticipated the Beast Tamer's intrusion and ordered me beforehand. I will testify in that direction. Then Ion lowered his voice and muttered, That way it will look like you prepared even for what the family spies hadn't discovered. Mi-Eon Jong immediately asked back, For me, the best thing is to testify to the truth, right? He then repeated to himself, That's why I call this a deal. Then he made a counterproposal. A deal must be when both parties exchange something that both need. What do you want? Yong stood up straight, excitedly stating his request. Just give me the right to enter the library for 3 days, and that will be enough. Mi-Yong chuckled softly, responding in a teasing tone. Arrogant one, all right then. Thank you. The boy quickly replied. No need to thank me. This is just a deal after all. He patted the boy's shoulder and asked, Even if you don't know, you already have a way to handle this, right? Ion stammered and couldn't get the words out. Then the phone in his pocket rang. Mi-Eon pulled out the ringing phone and said, It seems like the sword guard is calling you. You really have to go now. Before leaving, he turned back and called out, throwing something to the boy. "Ah, right, Yong," then quickly caught the small sword. The boy looked very surprised to receive this gift. He left, leaving the promise still echoing in Yong's ears as he admired the shiny small sword. "This I will keep secret for you." Smiling helplessly, he said, "Indeed, you are still not easy to deal with at all." As Yong was putting his clothes back on, Hoa approached and asked, "It seems like the conversation went smoothly, huh?" The boy coldly replied, "Yeah." She stood with her hands on her hips, her gaze slightly challenging, mixed with helplessness as she asked, "So who will you challenge among the examiners? It's been 3 weeks, it should be open by now." He maintained a steady tone while asking back, "And what about you? Where will the challenge take place?" The question made Kiowa angrily shout, "I asked first," and he was speechless, saying, "If you want to know, answer me first." She placed her hand on her chest, her face full of pride as she replied, "Where will I challenge you, ask? Nothing other than the hardest challenge, the official examination." After saying that, Hoa continued to ask, "And what about you?" You gently pulled the zipper of your jacket and said, "It's important to fight." Her face was completely stiffened by the spray, inquiring, "Huh? Does that place really exist? Don't tell me that's one of the exam judges in the outskirts." Hoa frowned slightly, her face tightening determinedly, replying, "Yes, it's in the outskirts." Hoa suddenly lowered her voice regretfully, saying, "That's really disappointing. It seems I misjudged you. You chose a judge from the outskirts again. Then there's no need to say anything more." She stood still next to you, mumbling, "I thought you were a straightforward opponent. I once thought you were better than me." Yong glanced over at her as she turned away and silently guessed, since everyone assumes that the position determines the difficulty of the exam, they probably think I chose the outskirts judge because it's easier. Then the two went their separate ways. You also turned your back and walked in the opposite direction. Hua sighed softly, saying to let it be, let them think whatever they want. In a dense forest in the area where light shone through with a bit of dreaming and some rustling sounds, Yong pushed aside the leaves to find a way. "Just thinking, I don't remember exactly, but it should be around here." You lifted a branch, squinting slightly due to the bright light, silently saying, "Before kneeling back, this is the cave I accidentally discovered and also the place where I will complete the second challenge of the naming ceremony." In front, Yong had a dark cave. You tried to look deep inside with your own doubts. In the fighting exam, Yong went to find a torch. He lit it to prepare to step further into the cave. He raised the flame and stepped in with a naive face, silently thinking, "Looking through it just seems like an ordinary wall." After a while of observation, clearly seeing the contours on the rock, Yong fell into contemplation. But of course it wasn't that simple. He set the torch aside, then grabbed the sword at his hip and drew it out. Yong kept chopping at the rocks, blue sparks lighting up along the path of the sword. After a while, a tall door appeared. The rocks on the sides were still cracking and falling down. With a confident, bright gaze, he stared at the door, secretly exclaiming, "Found it!" Yong took out a small knife he carried with him, slowly cutting into his palm to let the blood flow. Yong clenched his hand tightly, watching the blood flow. His eyes were focused on the blue light radiating from the cut hand. Yong waved his hand toward the large door, the blood splattering out along with rays of light sticking to the door. The door, stained with blood, began to move, and a ray of light flickered from within. The ground began to tremble, and the door gradually opened, revealing an altar right in the middle. He stood observing around the room. At this moment, Ion looked very small, standing at the doorway without stepping inside. He slowly approached the altar. The tightly clenched hand was still bleeding, drop by drop. Ion raised his hand to let the blood flow into the available tube. His serious voice reported, "Descendants of Sumulan, I wish to challenge the test of our ancestors." Yong watched as his blood transformed into green smoke surrounding his body, merging with his plea. "Please allow the echoes from the building to reveal the content of the battle challenge." Only one, those green smoke formed an illusion of Ion himself, and the challenge declared was to defeat himself. He stood opposite the illusion, quickly preparing his sword while reciting the rules. "There is no limit to the number of attempts before victory, and even if you give up, you cannot leave." Ion drew his sword from its sheath, took a stance, and silently said, "Let's begin." He took a strong leap from his feet to attack his foot, stomping hard on the ground, creating a loud noise. But before he could strike, an illusionary sword slashed across his head, causing Ion to suddenly halt and exclaim, "Ah!" At this moment, his head felt like it was separating from his neck. Ion was screaming in horror, slightly suspended. "What the hell?" Along with the illusion of himself stopping in the position just after attacking, that panicked voice was still echoing. "What's happening?" Yang quickly hugged his neck and shook it, his face showing panic. Clearly, he was full of doubt, stroking his neck and reassuring himself. "Just now, my neck was definitely cut off, that's right. The illusion in this challenge, I cannot die." Yang forced himself to stand straight, inwardly cursing. The realistic feeling is so frustrating at this level. A normal person would probably go insane. His eyes carried a hint of coldness mixed with suspicion, looking at the illusion and thinking. Moreover, Ion looked at his own illusion and muttered to himself, "Can I really do that?" He retrieved the sword back into his hand, mumbling while analyzing the illusion in the battle challenge, allowing him to use his power perfectly. Ion recalled the moment he was slashed by the sword, but did not die, leaving only a fleeting sensation that he himself acknowledged. This means that he has not yet fully utilized his inherent abilities. If he could fully exploit it, he would have blocked that strike just now. Without waiting any longer, Ion prepared his stance again and shouted, "All right, let's try again." Before he could rush in, the illusion acted faster, creating his own unique experiences. But the third time, he was stabbed through the stomach and died. The next illusion switched to a neck hold. On the fifth time, he blocked the sword, but immediately after his neck was broken and he died. Ion continuously fell into the feeling of losing his head he didn't know how many times. On the 10th time, he died for the first time. On the 18th, the second time. This time, he quickly countered the next move of the illusion. Two swords collided simultaneously, causing both bodies to be thrown backward. Ion fell down, sliding on the ground, fully controlling his landing with his own feet. His breath became increasingly rapid, and he counted in his mouth. Was it the 75th or the 80th time? His greatest strength is freedom, an overwhelming transformation. He transformed the initial sword into a spear Ion's hand, gripping the spear firmly, showing great determination. He swept through with the spear, glancing confidently at his own thoughts and unpredictable fighting style. Yong continued to charge toward his own illusion and exclaimed, "This time the two spears must duel." The illusion quickly parried his spear strike. Next, both sides transformed their weapons back into swords. According to Yong's own narrative, they kept dueling with swords, gradually transforming back into spears and continuing. As the fight showed no signs of stopping eventually, the situation unfolded exactly as he thought. His stance matched that of the illusion. The illusion of Ion slid back. Being an illusion, it seemed not easy to lose balance. The illusion transformed the spear back into a sword and looked at Ion with cold eyes. Then he deliberately left his defense open just like before. The illusion charged again. The illusion's sword thrust across Ion's stomach, piercing through as if the blade was about to break but not spilling a drop of blood. Ion's voice, a mix of triumph and contempt, rang out, leaving the illusion bewildered. "You fool! One of your hands is gripping the illusion's sword handle, pulling it toward you." The other hand swung the sword and shouted, "I intentionally exposed a weakness, you idiot!" The strike Ion unleashed caused a flash of green light to appear in the space. The ground shattered as well, and this sword technique was challenged and called No Demon. His own illusion had now died, the body gradually dissolving into small green spots. The entire body gradually vanished in space, and just as it was about to completely disappear, the illusion smiled with a hint of pain. Yong stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by floating green lights. He mumbled to himself, "If I pass the challenge of the bloodline trial, Sung Mulan will unlock the hidden power from my past life." His ability is just the most common type, enhancing the body with green energy, now with a hint of gold radiating. Yong whispered softly, "In this life, you feel amazed when looking at the golden light in the pupils." His eyes seemed to have stiffened. Yong vaguely extended his hand to catch the golden energy. His voice vaguely asked, "What is this ability?" Outside the room, there were many people, probably those who came to take on the challenge. Tahong was also standing outside the door. He was so anxious that he kept sighing. Tahong crossed his arms in front of his chest, his voice complaining, "I thought this time he would behave, that annoying guy." People organized the naming ceremony so peacefully while he caused so much trouble. Suddenly, an announcement sounded. He was startled and turned to look at the door. The density of magical power was changing. Everyone turned their eyes to look. Yong stepped out after a loud shout. He was opening up. His face darkened. His body struggled to take each step, not strong enough to leave the room. Ti-Hong angrily ran over while shouting his name, Li-Yon. He worriedly supported Ion's body, shaking him and asking, "Are you okay? Wake up." His mouth was so dry it cracked he tried to call out weakly. He wondered, "What are you calling out for?" His face turned purple like a sick person, his hands trembling as he reached out for water. So hungry he supported Ion's pale body, which had no strength, left his mouth agape in helplessness. His whole body was shaking now. The suppressed anger was about to burst out. His voice rose, a powerful voice rang out, causing the birds around the cliff to fly in all directions. "That kid!" In a grand house, a heartfelt call echoed outside. Young Master Kawa, full of emotion, shouted with his face full of worry. Tears were also welling up. Kawa hugged Ion tightly, sobbing, "Do you know how worried I've been? From the beast fighting to the mountain demon, and the challenge set by our ancestors too." The nurse said, "You are so dirty now you've been outside for nearly a month." She patted Ion's cheek and lovingly scolded, "At first I intended to scold you a lot, but welcome home, young master." Ion blushed on both sides of his cheeks, replied, "Yeah, thank you." Kawa let him go gently, wiped away a few tears, and said, "I have prepared a bath for you. After the bath, I will prepare a meal for you." Yang rolled the blanket in his hands, casually asked, "Oh, nurse, what about my aunt?" At this moment, he thought she would be the first to run to him. She suddenly paused, hesitatingly replied, making Yang a bit suspicious. "About that." Grandma Hoa, with a cheerful face, welcomed him. "Is my dear nephew here?" At this moment, Grandma Hoa was locked in a cell. He laughed loudly. "What have you done? You are smiling with closed eyes. I'm sorry, but seeing you safe is good enough." Even though locked up, Grandma Hoa still cared about his matters. "But what did you do to increase your magical power so much? I still can't digest all the air in my body." She innocently said, "Love him, sit down to relieve your tired legs. Sit down quickly. Now she will sit with me." He interrupted Gi Onghua. "Ma'am, you realize you're being a bit too emotional." She immediately felt shy. It's okay. I didn't expect you to go this far because of me." Gi Onghua remembered the reason for being pushed into the jail, the reason she was locked up here. At that moment, she was so agitated that she caused chaos among the elders, and 2 people had to restrain her. Gi Onghua kept cursing. "It's all your fault, right? You all did this." She had caused a commotion in the control room with the elders and the big brother. Gi Onghua regretted her impulsive actions. "I'm sorry, my dear, because I thought they had done something strange to you, so I couldn't hold back my anger." Yang was surprised to hear her confession. She just felt incredibly angry thinking about not being able to see you again. Gi Onghua clutched her neck, whining to him, causing her throat to choke. Yang reminisced about the memories of the 2 of them lost in thought. "To be honest, I had never fully trusted you before, but I don't know when I started to see you as part of the family." He smiled, sighed, going along with this new feeling of his. "All right, now I accept that." Yang turned to leave, but not before reminding Gi Onghua, "I will take you out soon. Please wait a little longer." She reached her hand out from behind the bars, waving to him. "What's wrong with you? Can you do it?" "It's okay. Don't try too hard." Yang smiled a healing smile for her. "I won't do anything anyway. You will be released soon." He closed the door, saying goodbye to Gi Onghua. "See you next time." At this moment outside the airport, a plane landed in the night. When it docked safely, the stairs were ready and a line of people came to greet. Tessin stepped out of the airplane door and the subordinates respectfully welcomed him. "You have arrived, sir." He walked past Wazeon, who was bowing his head. "I have kept you waiting for too long." She politely declined. "It's okay, the hot springs are ready. Please take a comfortable bath and then have a meal." Yang and Se-hyun stood still, listening to the adults talk. "I will respond to her, all right." He glanced at everything after the naming ceremony. "This time I thought I had matured quite a bit." The gazes of father and son accidentally met. Ion had many thoughts, but how far apart he was from his father he still couldn't measure. The hasty turning of his father's head made Ion think more. Their gazes have met. How could Tessin boldly go ahead? He said casually, "I always say that those who do not know how to fight are unnecessary for the clan." But his pupils wanted to find a destination for his words. "Among them, there is only one child who carries the desire for victory against me." Tessin's words made Ion waver. Who is he talking to? Is it the big brother? You sighed in frustration, wondering, have I tried so hard to control my emotions that he can still read me? "I think you already know the reason I summoned you." He ordered you to tell the story I want to hear about the event that took place during this naming ceremony. According to Ma Yong, you discovered an outsider and ordered his arrest. He instinctively bent down when he heard, "May I ask this time it was your plan, right?" You felt guilty, closed your eyes, thinking, "Father already knows." He gathered all his courage to admit to Father, "Yes, that's right. I was the one who suggested the deal with the big brother. The condition being, I have the right to enter the library for 3 days and help the big brother avoid this public relations storm." Yes, Tae-shin is also at his wit's end with this youngest son, only able to lightly scold him considering his contributions to this matter. "I will overlook your false report. He warned you one last time, but there won't be a next time. You bowed to acknowledge your fault to Father. Yes, I understand. Now it's Myeongjong's turn to be punished. On the contrary, Myeongjong, you will have to receive an appropriate punishment. From now on, organizing this party will be your task. Get back to your work." He placed his hand on his chest. "Listen to him." "Yes, I will do that." Before leaving, Myeongjong still wore a gentle smile to reassure you. You anxiously looked back at your brother, unsure if the big brother was okay. When the eldest brother left, Tessie continued talking to the youngest son. "Aside from the false report, the credit this time belongs to you. You will receive the reward that my Ion promised." You were surprised by Father's words. "Finally, because you have discovered the challenge of fighting, I will grant you a reward." Ion expressed his wish. "If so, change the scene." Tae-shin stood on the podium to open the party, thanking all the guests who had come here. "I hope our 2 children, the main characters of today's party, will be blessed on the path ahead." You and Hoa knelt on the red carpet listening to him declare. "Now we will continue with the naming ceremony." His warm voice resonated. Hoa stepped forward, smiling as she received Tessin's words, "You have been chosen by the Holy Sword. And always shine like the sunlight around you. Always keep this brilliant path." He bestowed upon her the name Sehun, meaning forever shining. Just then, Sehun's nameplate was also dropped down. The girl joyfully responded, "Tessin, thank you." When it was Eon's turn, his gaze became sharp. Next, the entire auditorium fell silent as he invited the next person. Ion stepped forward. You stood up and walked over while also paying attention to the expressions of those around. Their reactions were no different from the previous selection, but it didn't matter. Yong stood there proudly unconcerned about the surroundings. Hearing Tessie's remarks about me, I'm tough and sharp, but at the same time flexible without breaking like a blacksmith gathering iron from all directions to forge it into a single block. I have also honed myself. He seriously spoke about you. I can't find a word more suitable to describe you. Instantly, he snapped his fingers, the sound echoing throughout the room. Ion's nameplate was dropped, so we will name you Cheon. He stood pondering in front of his nameplate. Previously, I was named with the meaning to live resilient like steel. Ion smiled slightly smugly, but now that meaning has changed. He placed his hand on his left chest and said, "Until I reach the pinnacle of Dongmulan, I will not stop." Ion was proud of his new name. "My name is Lai Ion." He smiled brightly and said to his father, "Thank you." Transitioning to the isolation room of Justice Sung Mulan, which is a room but fully equipped for one person. But someone is about to go crazy groaning in the recording room. Mr. Hoa has been locked in the room for several days, unable to stand it anymore. She held her head and screamed loudly, grasping the iron bars, shaking wildly, shouting to the world, "I want to go out. It's too stuffy, too frustrating. Even naming the little one is not allowed." Witnessing the commotion, Gyeongwalan came out of the room. He said he would release them, but why is it taking so long? The guards also wanted to signal for help. "Help me." Suddenly the phone rang, attracting their attention. After answering the phone, he walked in to see Mr. Hoa about to turn into a beast, biting the blanket, crying out, wanting to go outside. The guard unlocked the iron bars, telling the frightened one that they could go out now. She stood frozen, maintaining the scene. Mr. Hoa was excited to hear him talk about discipline. An announcement will be made later, but for now, it has been allowed to leave the isolation area. She excitedly rushed out of this prison-like place, shouting loudly. The guards were worried, loudly reminding her not to kick around. Suddenly, someone called her back. "Wait!" Mr. Hoa was even more delighted to see his grandchild waiting for him at the door. "Oh, little one," she gasped, asking her beloved grandchild, "Did you really let me out?" He replied, "Yes, that's right." Mr. Hoa was confused, wondering, "Huh? How could—" Before she could finish her sentence, he held up a piece of paper in front of her. Mr. Hoa opened it, reading the information on the paper. What is this? His reminder to her that she owes him a favor. Mr. Hoa continued to read the letter with astonishment. Mr. Hoa held the title of Elder. The more he read the content, the more shocked he became, and was appointed as the master of the 9th Prince Li Ion. He beamed with a radiant smile, raising his hand in front of her. From now on, I hope the master will teach me. Transitioning Ion held the hem of his clothing, adjusting his outfit. Looking at his image, she was so moved that tears and snot flowed when she realized he could wear traditional attire. Ion smiled and replied, "Yeah, this is just the beginning." Kawa sniffled. "Is the young master already 13 years old?" He walked to the door, bidding farewell to the nurse. "Well, I'm off." Now he is 13-year-old Lai Ion in a clear blue space with a bright sky and no clouds. Ion's voice rang out, "Good?" He stood admiring the school gate. The life of a new student has begun. While standing in line in the schoolyard, there were some whispers about him. "Hey, isn't that the illegitimate child?" "That's right, he's the 9th child." Lai Ion heard that the selection ceremony and naming ceremony were quite chaotic as well. Their words were filled with disdain. It must just be luck after all, he's an illegitimate child. But to achieve such results at the naming ceremony based on luck is quite difficult, right? It makes me very curious. I mean, seriously, standing in line 5, I can't help but pay attention to their rude remarks. How many times have they said that illegitimate child? Illegitimate child, it's exhausting, I'm going to die. Suddenly, beside his ear, there was a whisper. "Oh, it's the 8th lady." They were referring to Sohyun, whose glamorous demeanor made others envious. Indeed, the direct descendants of the family have a different aura. At this point, she was 13-year-old Lee Sohyun, but in Ion's eyes, she was doing something quite strange. He noticed that people's attitudes towards her were vastly different from his. Their reactions were completely different from his. Seo-hyun approached to greet him. "Oh, hello, little Ion," politely replying, "Yeah, it's been a while." She shyly scratched her neck. You don't hold a grudge about what happened at the naming ceremony, do you?" he asked back in confusion. "Naming ceremony?" Sehun quickly corrected his words. "No, it's about what I said about being disappointed." At this moment, he remembered that incident. Well, Yong predicting the future while growing up is no different from being cold-hearted but still has to speak nice words to her. "All right, I don't mind at all." Sehun was delighted, wanting him to confirm. "Really? Is it true?" She laughed heartily. "Fortunately, you are a bit stingy, aren't you?" His expression darkened, getting angry at her words, wanting to clarify that stinginess part. "No, the senior brother is still curious about many things." She asked him, "I heard you are studying with the little teacher and even went to the library, right?" He was about to explain that when a loud voice announced, "Everyone pay attention, the student managers will line up neatly, you stand in the middle to speak. Now we will proceed with the class allocation for the named new students. Please gather in front of the trainer in an orderly manner." Yang began to feel restless. What should he do? It's getting tense now. If I get placed in a bad class, it will be disastrous. He sighed in helplessness. That reaction is understandable. The training period for students is 3 years, so class allocation is very important. Each block has 5 classes. More outstanding students will be placed in higher classes. The voice of the student manager rang out. He approached Sohyun. "Miss Lai." Sehun from Class 1 congratulated her. She happily accepted the acceptance letter. "Thank you." Yong immersed himself in his own thoughts. Lee Se-hyun was placed in 1st grade as expected. The words of the dormitory manager interrupted further thoughts. According to young Master Lee Yong, he stepped forward to receive the admission notice. "It's me, yeah, thanks." Yong held the paper and read the information on it, not forgetting to glance at the expressions of others. The displeasure was quite evident. He had predicted where he would be going. He knew it would be like this, but didn't expect them to be so blatant about it. Ion seemed quite satisfied with the class he was assigned to 5th grade, also known as the trash heap, where the repeaters and dropouts gathered, all arranged by Watson. The danger posed by her was increasing. The class assignment for direct descendants was based on the evaluation of the naming ceremony, while the review committee was in the hands of the Elder Council and Madam Beck. Everything was probably going according to Ion's plan. They thought they had put him at a disadvantage, but on the contrary, these things were better for him, saving him effort. Just then, a dormitory manager came to lead him, young Master Lai Ion of 5th grade, this way. Ion quickly turned to follow him. "Got it, I'm going right now." He glanced at Se-hyun, who was standing nearby. Her expression seemed a bit angry. She was so mad that she almost shouted, "Why are you like this? Aren't you going to complain right now?" Yang was amazed by her reaction. "Oh, look at that face. You can tell that if I don't do anything, that girl will take matters into her own hands." He worried a bit, but this issue still came back to wave at Sehun. Although I felt completely fine with Ion returning to his plans, what mattered more was that there was a more essential issue to be solved. Damn 5th grade, will I even graduate? The other kids are also making a fuss. What am I supposed to say to my father? I can't possibly be in 5th grade. The people at home will laugh to death. He felt helpless with the teaching staff here. It was truly disappointing. Why do the students of Dongmulan have such an attitude? Suddenly, a student approached to initiate conversation. "Hey, you are the youngest son of the Jung family, right?" "Oh, yeah," he replied correctly, making the boy happy. "Indeed, I really wanted to greet you." Smiling, I introduced myself. "I am Kim Han, the son of a small forge that contracts from Sung Mulan. It is an honor to learn alongside a young master." Yang was surprised by the connections in his previous life. Kim Han from the previous life had no memory of him at all. Yang wondered, why me? Kim Han innocently made small talk. "You are a prominent figure, so I have always seen you as an idol." Looking at that clueless face, Yang dropped his guard. "You're not lying, right, Kim Han?" He asked Kim Han, "What do you think about being placed in 5th grade?" And he innocently replied, I guess my current capability is just at that level. But that kid's gaze was determined. Who knows how it will be in the future." Yang was surprised by Kim Han's response. The boy's optimism impressed Yang. He smiled slightly, following Kim Han, feeling the innocence and joy of that little boy. "Yang scores this person, you pass." His words made Kim Han confused. Just entered the classroom. The old friends greeted warmly. "Yang, nice to meet you." "Rookie, we are counting on you." The boy in the middle is a 15-year-old student named Cho In-ha. The classmates are still bewildered, not understanding what is happening. Let's do our best together. That's right. If there's anything you don't know, feel free to ask. A round of applause interrupted this excitement. After the greetings, everyone paid attention. Dong-ho lightly punches his chest, introduces himself. "I am Lai Dong-ho, the instructor in charge of 5th grade. Today, due to the new students joining, there will be no lessons, only a brief introduction. This person is the instructor in charge of 5th grade level 5 warrior Lai Dong-ho. He stood quietly observing from a distance, still full of enthusiasm and determination as before. In my previous life, he also tutored me because I couldn't keep up. He always maintained a courteous attitude towards his students. All right, the introduction ends here. In-ha, you guide the rest for the new students." Cho In-ha cheerfully accepted. "Yes, teacher." He friendly waved to greet. "Hello, everyone. New students, although a bit shy. I am still the class leader in my 2nd year because I repeated the year for 2 years. Friends around were chattering. Only E and Kim Han were listening attentively. "Everyone has been sitting for a while. You must be tired, right? Anyone who wants to sit can go ahead. Now we will choose a class leader." Even as students, there are times when they are thrown into real combat. Cho In-ha calmly pointed out each issue, so the class leader is somewhat like the captain of a martial artist team. According to the plan, the class leader can be considered the one in charge of everything else in the class. A boy raised his hand to ask, "So how is the class leader chosen?" At this moment, Yang suddenly remembered, "Oh, right, I forgot to explain. I don't know how other classes do it, but here we will organize a light competition and then vote for the class leader." Cho In-ha clasped his hands, smiling brightly at everyone. "Great. Now let's start the match. Since this is a competition, magic cannot be used. After each match, there will be a break." Suddenly, a low voice seriously spoke. "Why are you all sweaty with worry? Young Master Lai Ion, do you have any dissatisfaction?" Ion enunciated each word. "Everything you are doing and everything you have said." He slowly lifted the sword from the stand. "Get a grip. This is Sung Mulan. If you want to play as students, then don't enroll in this academy. Go to a normal school in that safe zone." Cho In-ha hurriedly denied, "Your words are a bit excessive. We just want to resolve things peacefully." The tip of the sword was thrust down, causing the tiles to crack. "Talking like this, you won't understand, will you?" Ion leaned on the hilt of the sword, sternly challenged. "Come up here one by one. From now on, I will fight against all of you." He gripped the hilt of the sword tightly, trying to take a deep breath to fill his lungs. "Please spare me." The class was lying on the ground, groaning. "Please spare my life." Inha was astonished, unable to believe his eyes. "I can't believe it. How many people has he taken down all by himself?" Suddenly called by name, he flinched. Choi Inha widened his eyes at him and quickly called out, "Next person go!" Choi Inha fearfully nodded reluctantly. The pressure was truly terrifying. This is the final match. Ion slung the sword over his shoulder and smiled lightly. "Is that so?" He raised an eyebrow in delight. Both charged at each other with their swords drawn. The two swords clashed powerfully, producing loud sounds. While Choi Inha was still pondering, Ion used his strength to knock Choi Inha's sword away. Why is he making such a big deal out of this? It's just a fight with no prize or value. It's just a practice match at the academy. Ion's desperate appearance, breathing heavily, made it even harder for Choi Inha to understand. He didn't have the strength to make a serious move anymore, reluctantly biting his teeth. "No, I actually know very well." Choi Inha seized the opportunity to slash at Ion's side. "I used to be like that too. No matter what, I wanted to win." He quickly dodged the attack. "I once thought that compromise was another way of living, that accepting reality and growing up was the right thing to do." Choi Inha glanced back in confusion, but he wanted to win. "I crave victory to the point of madness." Yong saw an opening and swung his sword. "I win." He struck the handle of Choi Inha's sword, successfully knocking it out of his hand. The moment the sword hovered above his head, Choi Inha knew he was in danger. He dropped to the ground, painfully clutching his injured arm. Ion gasped repeatedly, "Take him to the infirmary!" His next words made Ion stare in surprise. "It's not over yet." Choi Inha grabbed the sword recklessly, slashing forward. "It's not finished yet." He barely managed to block that attack and analyzed the sword stance using his left hand since his right was injured. Choi Inha's pupils dilated, filled with a rare competitive spirit. His gaze was completely different from before. Yong could knock his arm away with just one blow. "It's not over yet." Yong switched to gripping the sword with both hands, his gaze focused on a single point. He slashed at Choi Inha's abdomen, causing him to double over in pain. Choi Inha's eyes went white, saliva spilling from his mouth. In an instant, Choi Inha lay collapsed on the ground while Ion remained unharmed, standing in place. Other students rushed to support him and take him away. Ion stepped forward slowly. "I have lived a second like an hour like a year. You stepped onto the stone steps and shouted down, 'Who doesn't know that living a leisurely life is easier? But if we don't fight for every second, we'll end up losing everything. Therefore, even while breathing, we fighting against ourselves and everything around us.'" The students below stood up, their bodies injured, gathering in one place. "Have you ever lived like this?" Ion's hand slowly clenched, and he shouted loudly, "That's what we call struggle." Dong Ho approached from afar, reproaching, "You're going a bit too far." "There are 4 people with broken bones, 3 with internal injuries." He lowered his head, closing his eyes tightly. "If you want to survive in Sungmulan, at least you must learn to smile in front of those wounds." He explained, "Those kids all have their reasons." Eon's voice carried a cold determination which startled Dong Ho. The stubborn teacher Dong Ho, even the students have come to understand. "Do I really have to explain it to the teacher too?" He brushed past him. "People like you are rare in Sungmulan. You are a good person." Dong Ho stood frozen, watching Ion's back slowly fade away. "But they are students of Dongmulan. If they go astray, even if you have to play the villain, you should pull them back." He seemed a bit unhappy, silently clenching his fists. "Just do your duty." From the viewpoint under the dome, the sky today was unusually clear. Transitioning Ion arrived at class while it was still dark, his whole body aching. Honestly, while he was busy complaining, he suddenly stopped. "Yesterday, I might have overdone it." The students in the class were lining up neatly in the courtyard. Although there were some students harboring hostility or feeling uncomfortable, none of them avoided him or turned away. They all looked at him with determined eyes. If they were still as fearful as yesterday, there would truly be no hope, but it didn't seem too bad. Yong walked past each person with 100 mixed feelings. "Here he comes." That trash someone from the back cheerfully called out to him, "Young master, you're here." Seeing that it was Kim Han Yong greeted him warmly. "You're here early, huh?" He scratched his head, smiling foolishly. "Yeah, I was afraid I didn't perform well in front of you yesterday. We're still just students. Being weak is natural." The bruise on Kim Han's face was still dark, but he laughed and spoke cheerfully as if nothing was wrong. He suddenly switched to a polite attitude. Young master, if it's not too much trouble, can I ask you a question? Yong comfortably accepted. Sure, feel free to ask. Kim Han clenched his fists tightly, very determined. What should I do to be strong like you? Yong excitedly pointed to one side of his temple and said, I'm not yet qualified to teach anyone, but you have a very good eye or perhaps a keen intuition. The more he explained, the more surprised Kim Han became with his eyes wide open. Yesterday you dodged my strike 3 times in a row, didn't you? Use that to your advantage. I think you're more suited to technique than pure strength. If you bet your life to hone what you have one day, you will be different. Kim Han hesitated before finally completing a sentence, thank you. A strange voice echoed, causing Yong to turn around instinctively. Hello, young master. Inha appeared with an arm in a cast. You look so pathetic, there's no way you can train like this. He sighed helplessly. If I decide to rest, will you leave me alone? You were planning to say some fighting words and then call me coward, weren't you? Inha quickly glided past Yong. I just didn't want to hear those words anymore. That's why I came out here. He wore a satisfied smile, thinking to himself, things have changed. The sky was still covered by a dark shroud, but the training ground was bustling. Gather around, Dong Ho called out loudly from above. There were 4 people, sick 5, absent without reason, leaving a total of 11 remaining. Seeing the condition of the kids made him worried. Everyone looked exhausted. The students hung their heads, not saying anything different from their usual lively selves. Moreover, the atmosphere was different. Just because there was a predator, the students were this tense. Dong Ho pretended not to notice the unusual atmosphere and continued to announce, Today we were supposed to check basic fitness, but considering the current situation... He seemed to have made up his mind, tightening his arms. I will change the plan. Dong Ho stood among the students, boldly shouting, Let's start the fitness test right now. As the sky fully brightened, the students were sprawled on the ground, gasping for breath. The fitness test had ended. From now on, the training will be led by the class president. Ion could still stand, but was sighing in frustration. It took 10 hours for the fitness test. I'm a bit tired now. He quickly adjusted his mood, but couldn't stop. Eong stepped up the stairs, ignoring the whispers from the students behind him. The teacher seems a bit unusual today. A quick-tongued friend guessed, it must be because of yesterday's match many were injured, and if it were before, he would definitely have given a break. A voice cut into their conversation. Attention! Ion stood tall, declaring, No need for further introduction. I am Lai Ion, your class president. Choi In-ha also widened his eyes, staring at the person up there. Just as Choi In-ha mentioned yesterday, Kim Han looked at Ion with admiration. Listen carefully. The class president has full authority to decide everything except for the teacher's orders. There was someone gritting his teeth in anger while he was speaking. My training time will be extremely harsh. Anyone who can't keep up... I have no intention of dragging along those who can't keep up. A student frowned unhappily. This annoying guy. He was a 5th-year student, Kimbo Seo. He concluded with a strong motion of slamming the sword's tip to the ground. If you are not satisfied with me, feel free to challenge me. Just defeat us once and I will hand over the class president position. He pointed decisively. All right, no need for more words. Just start now. Fight with the person next to you. The scene changes. The sun rises higher and higher. The remaining students on the field are just a few who are still busy catching their breath. In the end, only 6 people remained. The rest gave up halfway. All the students couldn't move a single finger anymore. Stop, that's enough for today. Disperse. Good job. The group of students started to gather again, bad-mouthing that damn Hoang guy. It's because of him that we're suffering like this. I really can't stand that Hoang guy. What does this even mean? Another friend angrily criticized, I have no intention of listening to that kind of thing. Kim Han, despite struggling to breathe, shouted, Stop it! He raised his fist, gritting his teeth. Honestly, I feel very bitter. Even if he is also very tired, we still can't hit him, not even once. One student saw Choi In-ha looking dejected and came to ask, By the way, In-ha, what do you think? Another student added, We had so much fun last year. Or do you also see Choi In-ha is tired? Cutting in, we had so much fun that we got suspended. Shaw. That student was surprised. What Choi In-ha tried to get up, vaguely explaining, if things don't change this time, I will really live like a failure. Even if I get my arms and legs broken, I still want to try once. I really, really want to. The group of students could only listen in silence to him. It's from Jack, you all know that. That damn Huangut guy, what I mean is, you understand what he wants to do, right? The students silently watched Choi In-ha gradually walk away. He, despite standing unsteadily, was incredibly determined. I will try to fight this time. It may truly be the last time. So stay alert, don't resist uselessly or pretend not to know anymore. Time passed until one fine day in the laboratory, along with the cold mechanical sounds. Come on, kid, transform! Yong was sitting still with his eyes closed, holding a spark of blue fire in his hand. That blue flame in front was still burning brightly while the one behind was dying out. Stop here! Gi Yonghua came to mind, tearing at his ears, tired and failing again. Every time he tried to create aura, its form collapsed. She kept pointing at the paper angrily, not expecting this issue to arise after turning 3. Why did Yong raise his hand, waving it a bit? If only there were documents recording how the ancients used magical power, that would be great. He sat still on the chair, lost in thought. If it is the memory of Votan, then I still haven't read the next memory. Anyway, the mail trip also yielded unexpected results. Since ancient times, humans have had to fight against dark things. There, that thing was covered in black mist, causing the monster herd to tremble in fear. Even the valiant generals of the kingdom were defeated. That black energy hides in the deep mountains. Countless heroes have sealed it at the northern Phantom Mountain. The king has granted land to honor that achievement. The heroes, grateful for the king's grace, created a sword that they made together as a beacon for humanity. At that time, they named it Infinite Ion. Clenching their fists, finding information about Infinite is a significant harvest. Gi Yonghua's mood suddenly blossomed unusually. Anyway, you have touched aura already. Stepping into 3 stars by yourself is quite impressive. She looked at him fondly, and the current impasse would soon be resolved. In fact, the Great Void technique and the transformation technique have almost been perfected by him. Eong buttoned his shirt and replied, Yes, thank you. You teach me every time. He looked at Gi Yonghua with sparkling eyes and reminded, I just remembered, teacher, what will I learn next after reaching 3 stars? Easy. She picked up a pen and explained slowly, You will learn how to use the energy manipulation technique and aura skills, but mastering them will take a lot of time. Gi Yonghua eagerly looked forward. Eong shared with her, By the way, how is the training course for the students going? You always look tired. He sighed. It's just normal. Gi Yonghua smiled with squinting eyes, looking forward. Is that so? If it's difficult, let me help you. He panicked and asked, How do you plan to help? Bate, Gi Yonghua placed her hand on her chest confidently, declaring, You will find out soon, just trust me. Very quickly, he became blank-faced, a bit regretful. Hearing about trust, I already felt worried. A gentle breeze blew Gi Yonghua's hair lightly up. Today there will be a special lecture on magic. Everyone adjusted their outfits and maintained their positions, waiting. She wore a formal white doctor's coat, standing in front of the class. This is elderly Gi Yonghua, a researcher from the Mist Laboratory. Deng Ho pointed at her, reminding everyone to applaud. Gi Yonghua blushed, chuckling a few times. So embarrassing. She picked up a piece of chalk, winking at the students. I don't like long-windedness. Let's start the lecture right away. Seeing Gi Yonghua excitedly rambling on the podium, Ion had a thought. It seems she is liking teaching more and more. She clapped her hands together, making a loud sound. Okay, the boring part of the lecture ends here. Gi Yonghua's mood was so excited that she lit up. From now on is the dry, boring part. I will pass on the improved version of the core technique developed by the Research Institute. Deng Ho was very confused. Didn't the lesson just end? Gi Yonghua rolled up her sleeves and said loudly, What are you talking about? The main part starts from now. Everyone sit up straight. I will only demonstrate once, so you have to focus. Gi Yonghua stood behind, chattering. When direct descendants attend the academy, they are usually supported this way, but you have nothing at all, so I'm trying a little harder. The warmth enveloping him made him smile. Thank you, teacher. All right, very good. Gi Yonghua patted his back several times, reassuring, if according to the theory, the power will double. Awesome. Eong took a deep breath, regaining his spirit. Yes, you are amazing. Deng Ho continuously clapped, urging the students. Everyone pay attention from now on. We will continue with the sparring. By directly applying the magic taught by the elder, everyone find your opponent. Eong unconsciously turned around when he heard the call, Young master, be my opponent. Inha had already held a sword in his hand and said, "I won't hold back against you." Eong excitedly pointed the tip of his sword at him. "It's an honor to fight you. I will let you strike first." Seeing the two children recklessly charge at each other, Gi Ong Hwa exclaimed, "My little one is really ruthless." She watched closely, unable to look away as if she were young again. Suddenly, the whispering behind caught Gi Ong Hwa's attention. "I really can't stand that brat," the students were gathering and whispering. "Even if the second child is discriminated against, they are completely different from us. Their physical condition is different, and they awakened their abilities from the very start." Another student pointed disdainfully. "Exactly, we have all tried our best, but what do they know?" Gi Ong Hwa suddenly appeared behind them, startling them. "Hey, are you students feeling nervous?" he asked. "Sir, you haven't left yet." Gi Ong Hwa leaned closer to that student. "Were you just talking about the brat, not about my disciple?"
Wow.
The students' hearts filled with fear. His expression made them bow in apology. "Sorry we spoke too excitedly." Gi Ong Hwa was instantly filled with rage. "What do you think you know to dare speak to that child like that?" The students trembled. "Please forgive us." Another student approached her and challenged, "Isn't it true that the young master doesn't know anything either?" Bocello greeted Gi Ong Hwa with a dissatisfied attitude. "We have worked hard too, but we are always treated like we are nothing. Growing up in different circumstances makes differences natural, right?" Gi Ong Hwa coldly turned away. "Do you really know nothing?" He looked confused. She gave Bo Seo Ong a clip that was full of implications. "Yes, perhaps not knowing would be better. If you knew how different a day for that child is compared to yours, you would realize. Their lives are no different from child's play." Bo Seo Ong clenched his fists in anger to the point of popping veins. After all, what makes that second child so different? He gritted his teeth, determined, "All right, fine, I will show you." The sun was now at its zenith. "Today, the training session ends here." Bo Seo Ong frowned slightly, glancing to the side. He looked at the man sitting by with a jealous gaze. "What's so different about that? Just shouting about fighting and struggling in the end. It's only because he was gifted differently than us." A group of students approached Bo Seo Ong, whispering, "Today, didn't you say you wanted to follow that second youngest?" That student looked at him worriedly. "But is it okay to move around the family's premises like this?" Bo Seo Ong confidently replied, "We are students, so it's fine. Moreover, it's not like we're heading to a dangerous place where that second child lives in the main lineage area." There was an indescribable determination in his eyes. "We can't let him dominate like this forever. Today, I will witness the sky gradually darkening." Outside, the buildings had already fallen into silence. Bo Seo Ong and the other students hid behind a wall, waiting for him to enter the research area. "How long has it been? It's already 9 p.m. Bo Seo Ong sighed. "Let's go home now. The daytime training has made us too sleepy." Another student added, "I'm also exhausted." The guy sitting in the middle agreed. "All right, anyway, we have no idea what that second kid is doing in there." Seeing the other students wave goodbye one after another, CEO Ong looked down on the weaklings. As soon as he saw it, Ion stepped out, feeling uplifted. "It's out." He rubbed himself, trying to comfort himself. "Come on, Bosel." Following every step of Ion silently, he finally got to go home. He pushed the door into another courtyard, which surprised him. Arriving at the training ground, that area is designated for the main stream, so he cannot enter. A strange sound came from the courtyard, and everyone outside was startled upon hearing it. "What is that sound?" The student next to him also wondered. "Is it the training sound?" The student behind frowned and advised, "CEO Ong, it seems that young master is really formidable. Let's stop." The young master didn't say anything wrong. That student was still rambling. "We will also try hard like Inha." CEO Ong angrily interrupted. "I will never overlook personal training. There's nothing different." The two students exchanged glances for a moment, and no one dared to say anything more. CEO Ong just stood silently watching the two students leave. "What difference is there between me and that second kid?" The two friends awkwardly departed. "Sorry, we're heading back now." CEO Ong stood hidden to the side, observing Yeo Ong taking a break. "I will definitely prove that I am not wrong." He continued walking down the dark corridor with CEO Ong closely following, trying not to be detected. Seeing him enter the courtyard, he felt a little excited, finally back home. From behind a light shone towards CEO Ong. "Hey, someone stop!" The night guard pulled his hat up high to see the person in front more clearly. "Huh, is this a student?" The guard shone a flashlight on him, inspecting. "Young Master Lee Ion, although he walks around at this hour every night, I didn't expect him to bring a student along." CEO Ong was secretly astonished. Every night he raises both hands trying to find an excuse. "I have a bit of business." The guard impatiently urged, "According to the rules, this is not allowed." "Hurry back!" CEO Ong slowly lowered his hands, his gaze still secretly looking back. "Yes." Seeing the light from the second floor of the Yong Institute still on, he wondered, the light hasn't gone out yet and it's already 2 in the morning. Bo Seo Ong turned away, muttering, "Then I wish you good luck." At this moment he did not hesitate, simply turned and walked away. "Let's go." The sky gradually brightened. The sun still had not appeared on the horizon, only the faint light of early morning. The next morning at 5 o'clock in the training ground reserved for the 5th class, Bo Seo Ong closed his eyes, rubbing his tired head. "Just as expected, I returned too late yesterday." His face was full of astonishment at the scene before him. He had been here for a while, wearily rubbing his shoulders. He really looked very tired. Even with a gifted physique and abundant magical power from the main lineage, can a 13-year-old child endure a life of only 3 or 4 hours of sleep a day? After recalling yesterday, Bo Seo Ong still felt ashamed for having time to lie on the couch. "What about me? When I get home, I often watch TV or play games to relax." He actually took a step closer to Ion without any jealousy for the first time. "I also often practice individually, but still get enough sleep, rest, and entertain myself reasonably." Ion looked up at him suspiciously. "What's going on?" Ion frowned slightly upon hearing CEO Ong's question. "Aren't you tired?" After a moment, he responded with a remark that left CEO Ong frozen. "So it turns out that among the people who were watching me yesterday, you were there too." Suddenly, he expressed his feelings, leaving Ion speechless. "That's right. The young master is from the main lineage, so he should be supported. The starting point is also different. Moreover, you are very sincere. I've been living like this since I was young. Before joining the student team, I had a little more sleep time. Not getting enough sleep, of course, will make you tired." Bo Seo Ong felt embarrassed and lowered his head. "Then why? Why did you go that far?" Yong stepped closer, placed a hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "You already know the answer." Waiting for Yong's back to gradually fade away, Bo Seo Ong silently cursed in his heart. "Damn me." Shane held his sword in hand, focused his mind, standing still in the vast hall. Someone walked in from outside, catching his attention. In the family hall, Butler Choi brought a stack of papers. "Dear clan leader, the documents for the mission you assigned have been processed." He picked up each sheet, examining them closely. "This isn't enough yet. This is a level 7 and 8 dungeon, and with the current level of the student team, it will be very dangerous." Shin turned to look at the butler, expressing his concerns. "Food and weapons can be stockpiled, but people cannot. Now we need to create people who can survive." The butler slightly bowed his head as if he understood. "I understand. I will handle it according to your instructions." After that, he hesitated for a moment before daring to continue. "There is one more thing to report." A silence enveloped the hall. A moment later, Ta Shin spoke up. "Did the youngest do that?" Thinking of the child, but not like that child, he sighed. "That kid has had a different look since he was little. The look of someone who has been deprived, who has been knocked down to the bottom." Ta Shin looked at his clenched fist with confusion, but leading people and changing them is a completely different matter. "Coincidentally, the 8th one is also from the same batch. Let's raise the level of the Sindo Doi." He quickly took it. "Yes, I understand." Tessie smiled knowingly. "Does that boy really have the qualities to lead people? This time I will examine it carefully." Early in the morning at the training ground dedicated to the 5th class, Jung Ho entered the training ground with curiosity. The scene before him made him stare. Lost surrender. Go to hell. It's not over yet. The heads of the students are lined up neatly running around the field. These kids, they came out here early on a weekend. Some other students are pairing up to train with each other, which makes Jung Ho feel a bit relieved. Then there's no need to endure training anymore. A student accidentally turned around and saw Jung Ho. "Sir, the coach you have arrived." He praised, "Yeah, working hard on a weekend." Jung Ho approached the student, gently reminding, "If anyone is not here yet, go call them back. There is an announcement to be made." The boy quickly complied. Yes, after everyone had gathered, he solemnly announced, "Although it's a bit rushed, the first quarter evaluation schedule has been moved up." Jung Ho was very excited to share the good news with the students. "Therefore, it has been decided to grant a week of leave beforehand. Let's consider this as the last day off and rest well." He still had something to say, but suddenly stopped. Finally seeing the students, even though they were covered in injuries, still very enthusiastic, made Jung Ho very satisfied. No need to remind them that even during the break, they must maintain minimal training. He declared loudly in front of the class, "I believe you all can take care of yourselves. You've worked hard." The end. Everyone shouted together loudly, "That's it!" Jung Ho lowered his head, lost in thought. Suddenly getting this leave is moving the quarter evaluation up, okay? Here, feeling someone behind him, he raised his face. "Why hasn't everyone gone home yet?" Kim Han cheerfully laughed, looking at the young master. Ina glanced at Ion curiously. What does the young master plan to do during this break? Wow. He casually said something that left the other students bewildered. "Leave time is personal time for each person. Why ask me the next question?" The statement further confused them, eyes wide open. "Whenever you need a break, just take a break. I do not intend to force anything during the break." They began to whisper to each other, not expecting to hear such words from the young master. "Actually, we thought the young master would make us dive into hellish training. Like, is there really someone who intends to take a break?" Then he forced everyone into a concentrated training session. Seeing them openly bad-mouthing in front of him made Ion raise his eyebrows in annoyance. "Why not just say it louder, kids? What do you think I am?" Then he made a suggestion that scared everyone, making them jump. "So, should we try again during this break like we did on the first day?" Yong let out a reluctant sigh. "Take a break when you need to. Resting is important too. I know that even if I tell you to rest, you won't just sitting around doing nothing. Don't just take care of yourselves, rest well, and we'll meet again after the break." He turned to leave, and before he took a few steps, the whole class behind him cheered excitedly. One fine day in Lee's research room, Gi Onghua was dissatisfied, sternly questioning, "I heard there's a vacation, but I have a ton of research to do." She was forced by Ion to sit and read books and was openly criticized. Earlier, she was still playing with her phone, looking at random things. Gi Onghua angrily shouted, "What do you mean, random? I'm reading something that Inha got acknowledged by the head of the family. Even the leukemia has been cured." Ion then curiously asked, "Wait, what exactly are you looking at?" He seriously brought up another issue. "Is it true that the assessment of the precious being pushed forward is really due to my father's orders?" Gi Onghua nodded to confirm, "Direct orders sent down." Ion bent down, falling into a state of panic. "Then this test period will be tougher than imagined. Right now, I am being blocked at the magic wall. To get through, I might have to seek out the next memory of infinity." Remembering that time, Ion had failed, which made him feel discouraged. If the memory cannot be read, it proves that something is still missing. I tried to improve to see if I could unlock the next memory, but I was unsuccessful. While Ion was not paying attention, a stack of documents next to him wobbled. It seems I can only keep looking for a way. Suddenly, the whole stack of papers fell to the ground. What's going on? Be careful, all the documents scattered on the ground. I told you to clean this place up already! While picking them up, he unexpectedly saw something. What is this? The research document talks about harmony. The decisive difference between ancient and modern martial arts lies in the goals they aim for. It can be inferred that at that time human techniques focused on fighting monsters. Yoon was engrossed in reading the research, analyzing the intended goals. The same goes for Chukma. Chukma originally was an excessive technique. Suddenly he stood up looking for Se-hyun. Should I stop eating? What's wrong, kid? Yoon-hyun hurriedly ran somewhere, not forgetting to say goodbye to her. Hey, I understand now, I'll explain later. I need to get to the training ground right away. Soo-hyun was still bewildered, not understanding anything when the documents on the table flew everywhere. She looked after Ion, who was like the wind, gradually disappearing, and shouted loudly, "That little brat!" A blue light enveloped the sword. A hand gently reached out to grasp the hilt. Yoon held the sword tightly in his hand, taking a stance. Now imagine the opponent. He slowly closed his eyes, trying to concentrate. In Ion's mind appeared a huge, dark figure, a being larger than him, a monster different from humans, a gigantic beast. A technique that disregards efficiency, a continuous strike that preserves strength, evasion, or defense. The more he focused, the more the blue power was absorbed by the sword. Things that are flashy but have no destructive power or only serve to deceive the opponent are useless. Ion's gravity suddenly changed, causing the ground beneath him to crack. The clear target of Truck, a loud explosion sounded, rocks and dirt flew everywhere. Ion jumped up, raised the glowing sword in his hand, and slashed at the monster. In the direction of the sword blade was a huge, dark monster with many tentacles. He made a precise, long slash, cutting the monster in half. The sword emitted a powerful light, and Ion's whole body was wrapped in that light. Smoke continuously rose with a gentle breeze blowing through Ion's hair. He stood still in the smoke. The entire space was immersed in silence. At this moment, a stream of black smoke wrapped around the sword. All right, the darkness gradually swallowed Ion, but he looked up with anticipation. Now what will appear as the night gradually fades away? Ion looked around. Where is this? A hazy courtyard appeared before his eyes. The training ground looks exactly like when I received Infinite for the first time. Why does the perspective change only when reading the memories of Infinite? Yong hid behind a pillar, startled when he saw something. A warrior was fighting inside, the other was someone from the previous memory of Infinite. What incredible speed! Yong's pupils widened in shock. What is that? At first, he held a sword in his hand. A second later, it transformed into a spear. Seeing that the aura around him was somewhat unusual, he concluded when the weapon changes, the aura also changes. Immediately after, the weapon in his hand turned into an axe. It is not the aura of that person that changes, but Infinite is transforming. Aura-Eon's gaze could not keep up with the movements of that person. Don't peek at others while they train. The other person curiously asked, Since you got it, have you named those techniques yet? The warrior shook his head. It wasn't at the level to be called a technique yet. The other person suggested, Then let me name them for you. How about transforming B? Yong quickly hid when he saw them making a move. Not bad, the fighter suddenly asked coldly. Hey, are you bringing someone here? The more he denied it, the more worried I became. Me? There's no way that's true. The space seemed to be torn apart, something just brushed by causing everything to be disturbed. The two of them started to duel again, intending to test their skills in a match. What reason would there be to bring someone here? Yong peeked out to observe further, and he briefly saw someone's hair fluttering in the wind. Yong closely examined the cold face of the newcomer. Those eyes and that hair color, when he clearly saw the person's identity, he immediately recognized the characteristics of the main line. In the fog of the dark night enveloping the vast forest at that moment, a vehicle was speeding rapidly. Yong, resting his chin on his hand, looked out the window into the distance with a stream of thoughts running through his mind. This scene was no different from the future or the past. A gray, somewhat old wall stood hidden among the trees, looking quite strange and mysterious. The wall separated the safe area from the dangerous area. Long ago, a giant crack appeared near the Pacific Ocean, a mysterious space that humans had never officially explored. From there, unseen monsters poured out. Humanity fought with the monsters for a long time to reclaim territory, but there were still unexplored lands. These places are called unexplored areas, also known as dangerous areas. He still had his old habit, leaning on his hands, pondering everything, setting dozens of challenging questions in his mind. Meanwhile, a curious voice rang in his ears. Recently, people say that the walls have divided the boundary between the safe area and the danger area, right? Kim Han broke the silence. He smiled brightly, eyes tightly closed. The closer he got to the danger area, the more desolate the scenery became. His words quickly responded, but still we are inside the wall, so the level of destruction is only this much. The pioneering villages near the dangerous area have a very backward level of civilization. He recalled the difficult past with a helpless and somewhat oppressive expression, because in his previous life he also lived there for a while to hide. The vehicle sped through the city wall at an incredible speed. Everyone should be alert. The wheels suddenly braked sharply. A mysterious voice rang out, because from now on, the place we step into when the wheels stop is also when everyone will gradually get out of the vehicle. Ion looked carefully ahead. It was an unexplored dungeon. Immediately afterward, the supervising instructor called for the members. The face of Instructor Dung-ho had an excess expression, both serious and somewhat authoritative. Assemble! We will set up camp here, check the necessary supplies, and then start the test. Lee Ion and the students quickly gathered, each wearing a serious expression on their faces. Everyone seriously listened to the instructions and guidance from the supervising teacher, while the escort guards only had the duty to protect this base. From now on, you all have to take care of everything yourselves. Dong-ho patted his chest to reassure the little ones, finally revealing a bit of emotion, lightly punching his chest with one hand. With a determined and loud gaze, he spoke, "But we are not worried." He looked up at his students, his eyes full of determination. "I will support as much as possible as a coach at this base. Everyone show everything you have prepared so far." The collective response from the students was incredibly spirited and heroic, as if shaking the heavens and the earth. Yes. After the instructor's instructions, Lee Ion stepped up to stand in front of everyone with a serious expression, speaking about taking on the role, "From now on, I will take command." At this moment, his expression began to change, his gaze becoming vague. His pensive face made people shiver, not daring to look directly into his eyes. But before that, he spoke with an unchanged, cold face, confidently stating that this test would be harder. "This is the last opportunity. Anyone who wants to leave should do so right now." In the forest of spider faces, each white thread filled the tree canopy, the atmosphere dark and eerie. Indeed, anyone who looked in would know that this precious test was not meant for ordinary students. A dungeon filled with spiderwebs, any intruder would be immediately detected by the monsters. Remembering his father's determined attitude, he thought to himself, "Yet our task is to film an adult spider in this forest." Clearly, this was a test set by his father. His train of thought was abruptly cut off when a firm voice rang out, "Now, no matter how you try to test me, it won't matter." Inha sighed and spoke with a very decisive attitude, as if nothing could shake his will. "All members of the 5th class will not run away or give up." Kim Han also smiled back with equal flair. "That's right, young Master Bocello has a strong presence that feels overwhelming." He continued solemnly, "We trust in you, Mr. Lee." Ion showed a surprised expression for a moment, as if unable to contain his astonishment, but then quickly sighed in relief and smiled softly, beginning his teasing. He scanned them with his eyes. After seeing everyone's expressions, he began to tease, "You guys naturally say such cheesy lines, huh?" Bocello couldn't help but feel shy, blushing as he spoke. "That's because the young master created such an atmosphere." After the slightly awkward and playful exchange, everyone's spirits seemed to lift even more. He leaned on his hand, looking confident as he directed everyone. "We can start now. I understand no one gives up." After a final check of communication supplies were distributed, and they moved into the forest. With a passionate spirit, they shouted in unison, "Yes!"